sound. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Monday. That's Blaine Fowler. I'm Dave McCann. This is the first time in the history of the world the Wise Guys has been live on Monday.
In the history of the world.
So in 2023, at Christmas time, here we are. Our new night, we're going to be here forever. One of the reasons, as we've been talking about the last few weeks, is the Big 12 basketball schedule is Saturday, Tuesday.
Right.
And so we're doing the Tuesday games.
We have a game tomorrow night.
And that got in the way. And so we thought, well, we don't want to compete against ourselves.
Do you know what makes me happy, though? That already, like Mark Axel, best night of the week. Glenn Luman's in from the Philippines already. Ruthie's in with us. And like Bobby Gardner, Howard, right. Alan Black. Like, we just want to recognize that you're all with us, and it's Monday. It's a day change, and you're all here. BYU Sports Addict is here. Jeffrey Siemens is here. Bobby Gardner's here. Thank you all for making the change with us. Eric Wade is here.
From
Singapore.
Antonio.
So from all over the world.
Mic fixed? Can you fix that? There we go.
From all over the world, they got the message, Dave, and they're here with us on Monday night. It's going to be great. I think Monday night's a great night to have it.
It's a great time to be the #1 BYU Sports live stream show in the history of the world.
Eric says it hasn't changed. It's actually Tuesday for them.
Yeah. Well, he's a day ahead.
Yeah, that's right.
Give us the scores, Eric, so we can get some action down.
That's right. If you're a day ahead, we'd like to know.
Get in on some Monday games. Hey, we're still on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and of course our home base, ysguys.com. That's where all our interviews are, and there's hundreds of them from Danny Ainge, Steve Young, Wally Joyner, Marie Osmond, Kyle Van Noy, Sherry Dew. Our interview with Harvey Longy last week was awesome. That's there for you as well. You want to hear a story of survival with some tender mercies.
My wife, Brenda, texted me during the show and said, I'm sitting here crying, listening to Harvey. And I'm like, well, guess what? Dave and I are having a hard time not sitting here crying with Harvey. It was a riveting story, a tender story about what he's gone through. Their terrible accident, literally the Friday night before he was supposed to start in his first NFL game on Sunday.
Against the Jets.
Which we're not even going to talk about. Wow, what an unbelievable journey.
Yeah, that's a good one. Anytime you can get these big, bad football players to open up, and it's like we're not Barbara Walters by any stretch, but we you ask the right questions in the right moment, in the right way, and emotions come out, and pretty soon you've got a guy just spilling the beans.
Well, I go all the way back to the very beginning of the show. We had Mark Wilson in, and we're about 30 minutes into it with Mark Wilson, and he goes, can I tell you guys something that I haven't told anybody in 40 years? And we're like, yeah, it's just us.
It's just us right here. The three of us.
And then Mark tells us, and this format where we get to have guests on for a little bit longer, we get to get into the stories about their lives, has been so fun for Dave and I, and we hope that it's fun for you all over the world to be able to get to know some of these folks that you watch play on the field, or you read about, or you know that have done great things, from the governor of the state of Utah to astronauts, to musicians, to Broadway stars, to athletes. We're about a lot more than that with these folks because we want to know who they are, and this allows us to do it. So we hope that you enjoy that, and we love that you're with us.
Plus, we love to say, hey, Singapore, do you have a question? Or Australia,
right. or the Philippines.
Alaska, the Philippines, and BYU alums all over the place, and those who will listen on the podcast throughout the week and watch our little clips on YouTube, where actually people see more of us than here on the live stream. Right. But that's how we're trying to blanket the free world. We got an awesome show tonight for our Monday night. The portal is open. Did you put yourself in the portal? Are you good? You're staying here?
No, I'm staying with the show.
I'm going to stay.
I was thinking of going to another show. I'm not even going to mention the other show, but they weren't going to pay me more.
So the portal's wide open, and it's going to get crazy. There's some coaching changes, a couple of names being kicked around we're going to talk about tonight. And David Nixon's going to join us in a few minutes. Yesterday, he was on the sidelines with Taysom Hill in New Orleans as the Saints played the Lions. And once again, the Saints coaching staff blew it by not putting Taysom in more often in more situations that he's built for, and they lose the game they deserve to lose. But I thought Taysom played great.
They're not, and I mean, they take advantage of his skill set somewhat, but not as much as they could.
Why would you ever take him out on 2nd down and 1 from the 1?
You shouldn't.
And put in Winston, who's cold off the bench. Why would you ever go, hey, you know what? I got an idea. Let's take Taysom out and let's put Winston in.
That's like...
Plus, I have Taysom on my fantasy team, so I have a lot of built-in.
It even sounds dumber than it looked yesterday, right?
Yeah.
When you say
I'm looking at the TV and I'm like going, I'm not the smartest guy. We've proven that every week on the show. However, I need about a foot. I'm going to put Taysom in and have him give me the foot.
You can't stop him. If you don't block somebody, you can't stop him. If you don't block two people, you can stop him. But if you don't block one person, he's going to score.
So we'll ask Nick's what his brother-in-law is up to.
So, hey, this portal thing is crazy. We're going to talk more about that. You and I were talking about that right up until we started the show, because it's just got us scratching our heads and just going, what in the world? So we'll talk about that. Some folks are already asking about, who's going to be the O-line coach. We're going to get into that. So, Robin, don't worry. We'll get to that in just a little bit.
Hang with us, Robin.
We got Doug Wilkes, Deseret News editor, on with us.
You know what that makes him? He's the boss.
That's right.
Of the oldest paper in the West.
That's right.
Like way older than the L.A. Times. People think the L.A. Times was first. It wasn't. So there's going to be interesting things about the Deseret
so many
News.
fun things to talk to Doug about, too, because he's been around the state for a long, long time. And was it BYU back in the days, in the 70s? And so it'll be fun. We've got some great things to talk to Doug about.
Rarely do we have someone in studio that was at BYU before us.
That's right.
Not that.
A little
before you and a lot before me, but still before us. Yeah. But it's going to be great.
And was an athlete there. We're going to tell you that, too. Was an athlete at BYU.
And what's going on with BYU hoops? They are number 14 in the AP Top 25. They're number 2. Number 2 in the net poll. The net ranking, by the way, is what the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee uses to do their seedings and to determine worthiness as to whether or not you get in the 68. And BYU's number 2 as we sit today.
And the Ken Palm, what did I see the latest one?
6? Yeah. That's unheard of compared to where they were last spring.
Well, and here's the thing. So last year, against bad teams, they were winning games, but they kind of played down to the level of the teams they played. They didn't beat any high, in terms of RPI or net teams, and they didn't play well against those teams. This year, they're beating those teams, and they're killing the bad teams. They're literally running them off the floor. They look like a big-time team. I can't wait for them to get in the Big 12, because I keep wondering if this is fool's gold or not.
Well, that's what everybody's thinking. I got a story in the Deseret News tomorrow morning about that exact thing. It's like, what are we watching here?
But there's some things that, and we'll get into it in just a little bit when we talk a little bit more about basketball, that I think carry over into the Big 12, that are characteristics of this team that I think bode well for them as they move into Big 12 play. So we'll talk about that.
Let's jump into some football headlines before David Nixon joins us. And Jay Drew of the Deseret News wrote today, and it's all over the chats, depending on where you go to chat, that the BYU needs an offensive line coach. And Jeff Grimes has emerged as one of the top candidates. He has withdrawn from the UTEP head coaching search. UTEP named a new coach today. And all signs point to a return of Grimes to BYU. And if that is the case, with an if, how big is that for the offensive line, which is his wheelhouse?
Yeah, well, Jeff Grimes not only is one of the great technicians in college football in terms of coaching offensive linemen, like from foot placement to hand placement to pad level to all of that. So he teaches it. He's also one that is one of the most, I would call him, highly accountable offensive line coaches in the country. So like he's going to make sure that these guys are highly accountable for what they do, that they do technique-wise what they're supposed to do, that they're blocking who they're supposed to block, that they know what they're doing or they won't play. And so I think he brings an edge to an offensive line that's hard to match anywhere else in the country.
Let's be honest, we didn't have an edge on the offensive line this year. We had big guys. We didn't have an edge. Right,
and when we talk about Jeff Grimes, he'll bring that edge to that offensive line. Those guys will be mean and nasty, and we don't have a formal announcement yet. We're waiting on that, but you saw it in the papers today that he's right at the top of the list. Here's the other thing, Jeff knows he's been at BYU a couple of times, right, and he knows the culture. He knows what it takes to recruit here. He's very comfortable here, so it makes a lot of sense. Now, remember, there's another position open as well.
Yeah, and tight end coach.
Yeah, and tight end coach. And remember that Jeff Grimes was the tight end coach at Baylor. And Mateos was the offensive line coach. And Jeff Grimes was the run game coordinator. Yeah. So do they go out and get another guy that comes in tandem with him? Let's say, and I'm not saying this guy, so nobody quote me on this, but say somebody like a Ryan Pugh. Because remember,
be a great idea.
When I think that when Jeff Grimes and Ryan Pugh were here together before, man, I felt like that was as good as we had in years, in terms of how that offensive line performed and how much they lived up to the potential when you had those two guys working together. So could we see something like that? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I do know.
We're going to find out here pretty quick.
Yeah, we're going to find out very quickly. And We do know that Jeff Grimes is right on the top of the wish list, and that would be an easy one. And someone like a Ryan Pugh would be great to bring in with Jeff Grimes.
Yeah, and we'll be watching closely because we feel like that there's some kind of announcement to be made this week. So hang with us. By the way, Neil's in from Tucson, Arizona. Nathan from Lake Orion, Michigan. Is it Orion, O-R-I-O-N, or is it Orion?
I think it's Orion.
And did Orion just miss out on the Big Lakes voting? That they were like 6th or whatever? You know?
Do you remember Orion's?
Maybe it's a small lake.
Do you remember what Orion's belt is?
No.
It's a star constellation, but it was also the thing on the cat's collar. Orion's belt was on the cat's collar and MIB's, the Men in Black.
Really?
With Will Smith, yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Orion's belt, yeah, it was on the cat's collar.
Greg's in from Provo as the Wise Guys on a Monday night. Hey, Tyler Batty announced over the weekend that he's coming back for next season. Now, I don't think any of us thought Tyler was ready to go to the NFL. But a lot of guys start thinking that they might be, or if they want to come back and go through the college grind. He's been here a while. But another year in this defense will get him ready, give him a shot. And what it does is it also gives BYU a shot because they've got John Nelson back healthy.
Yes.
You can build around Batty and Nelson with some recruiting, whether it's in the portal or whether it's in the JC market, which they're heavily involved in, to beef up the interior line.
Yeah, you need some monsters inside. And then, what I like is that I feel like Tyler Batty played at his best down the stretch. I thought he really started to come into his own and started to understand this new defense better and what was expected of him and how to play within it. And so I feel like the decision to come back is a good one because now this defense in year 2, like I felt the defense was really good at times and there were some lapses at times. And those lapses wasn't because the guys weren't playing hard, because guys were out of position. They weren't gap sound. We talked about it a lot on our AFR show. We've talked about it here. Nixon, who's coming on with us, boy, he and I talked to her blue in the face about run fits and all of that. But it was a brand new defense for all of these guys except for Eddie Heckard and Cam at the corners, right? And so I feel like he got better and better in terms of his assignments as the season went on. Now you bring him back and this whole other cast of characters back, year 2 in this defense. You watch this defense take a monster jump here in year 2. I really believe that it's going to be one of the best defenses in the Big 12 next year.
Batty's second team all Big 12, so it'll be good we have him back. By the way, a shout out to Steve Sarkisian, our friend and former Cougar quarterback, head coach of Texas. They win the Big 12 championship, beat Oklahoma State 49-21. It should have been Oklahoma because we should have beat Oklahoma State, but it wasn't, so it was our fault that was such a lousy game. But Sark's going to the college football playoff and a chance to win it, which I still think it's amazing that a former BYU player has the #1 football job in America.
And you know what?
As a head coach
his team
at Texas
is peaking at the right time.
Yeah.
They looked really good last week. Like they're playing well.
Our first guest tonight is our colleague on BYU TV and former NFL linebacker, Cougar star, David Nixon. And Nix, first of all, welcome back from New Orleans. You were there with your boys to hang out with Taysom as he played the Lions. And I know you put this picture out on social media. We're going to show it here in a sec. First of all, good evening. And secondly, how was it hanging out with Taysom?
Wait, first of all, where are you? Are you at your house?
I'm here at my house.
Do you live in the temple? Like, what is going on?
Is that the temple room?
This is my living room, guys. We got the stockings going.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Nice.
My office is under renovation right now, so I moved venues into my family room.
You were blocking the TV, and I was like, man, I think Dave's coming to us from the temple right now.
Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. I'm glad you got the tree.
That's
up.
next week's. That's next week's appearance.
Next week's appearance. Hey, what was it like hanging out with Taysom and treating the boys to a NFL game?
It was fun, man. That was my first time. My little boys, I feel guilty for saying this. That's the first time I've taken them to New Orleans. I've been to probably a dozen games down there, but I finally took them down there just because of sports and school. It's always tough to get them down there, but they had a blast. We got in the game. We got in the field pregame. I think that's the picture right there you see in front of you.
Yeah.
And got to say what's up to Taysom. He dabbed him up and all that fun stuff. And then after the game, we got down on the field, and unfortunately, we flew back last night. And so we didn't get to see Taysom after the game. So I texted him. I said, hey, great job. Great game. You killed it. You crushed it. And he goes, dang, I wish you guys were here. I have the football that I scored my touchdown with. I have it here for your boys.
Oh. He's going to have to mail it. You have to mail it.
Yeah, that's what he said. My parents were actually down at the game as well, so they're gonna bring it back.
That's
But
awesome.
Taysom's just a stud. I'll tell you what, that guy. I mean, he does what they ask him to do. The fans, the crowd love him. I'd say probably one out of every 3 jerseys is a Taysom Hill jersey. They just love him down there in New Orleans, and rightfully so. He's an absolute beast. He's unstoppable. Even when he lines up his quarterback with the running back in the backfield, they know that he's going to run power counter, and he still gets 6, 7, sometimes 10+ yards per carry. It's unbelievable what he does, and the spark that he provides to that offense. It's fun to watch, and I'm telling you, you probably heard on the telecast, but every time he came in the game, the whole crowd erupted. I mean, they love seeing him in there. And listen, some of that's maybe due to Derek Carr's issues he's got going on right now, but it was a fun game, and it was a fun comeback. Obviously fell short, but it was fun to see him try to make a run there at the end.
So this begs the question then, with everything you just said, 2nd and 1, let's take Taysom off the field and put Jameis Winston in the game. Like, what in the world? Did the fans boo? Like, what are they even thinking?
Oh, there were audible boos going on. Yes, there were lots of boos.
Just give it to Taysom. It's a touchdown.
It is a little baffling. I'll be honest. It's baffling why he doesn't. When you get down the red zone, why he doesn't get more touches? It's just like it's a guaranteed at least 3 or 4 yards, right? And we talk about it all the time. If you get 4 yards per carry, that's a first down every single time. Just run them the whole game. And then of course, he had the deep ball he threw that he almost connected on. And listen, that's tough. That's tough to come into a game. And Blaine, you're a former quarterback. You can attest to this. It's tough to come into a game cold, and all of a sudden they asked him to throw a 50-yard bomb. But still, he was riding the money. Just probably underthrew it a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty impressive what he's doing. Obviously, with the little practice.
Nobody's ever done better what he's doing.
He was returning kickoffs too. They had him back there on kickoffs.
He's the most unique player the league has ever seen.
Yeah, I think he's got a spot in the Hall of Fame
because
coming
he's
up.
he's already setting records, but it's just crazy. And we all knew he was a freak when he was here. We're like, this guy's the most freakish athlete we've ever seen. You're not supposed to be that big. That, like I was saying, I had never seen anybody in BYU's program remotely as athletic, when I'm talking about size, speed, explosiveness, since Luke Staley. But then add that he can throw the football and do all of that. It's like nobody has ever come through BYU like him, and nobody's been in the NFL ever like him. It's crazy to think of.
I like that he's still a good dude, and that he hangs out with his nephews, and that's important to him.
He's not a good dude. He's a great dude.
Yeah.
Honestly, I couldn't ask for somebody better to look up to for my kids and for kids all across Cougar Nation and kids all across the country, Saints fans. I mean, he's a fantastic role model, great guy, great husband to my sister, great father to my nephews. He's just an all around great guy. So it's hard not to root for him. And I think that, once again, I think the fans in New Orleans feel that. And that's why you see so many of them supporting him. I mean, I can't tell you how many people say that he's their number one. He's their number one player on the team because they just love him.
And they don't even know all of his history and all of the injuries they overcome to
Seriously.
Even get to that position.
We used to get after Robert and I for his limited playbook because it was just, hey, Taysom, just run it every time.
Yeah.
I wish Robert and I would call the Saints and say, let me give you some. Just put him in and have him do it like all the time. And
it's a remarkable story, and to keep grinding the way he did with the major injuries they had, and they were all fluke injuries, and he just kept grinding to find himself where he is pretty amazing. So
hey, I know we just have a few minutes with you because your boys got a ball game tonight, so let's jump right into it. In the event that it's Jeff Grimes back to coach the offensive line at BYU, and we were referencing Jay Drew's report in the Deseret News today that all signals seem to be pointing this way. Is that good?
I think it is good. I mean, listen, there's no question he knows how to coach the offensive line. I mean, and I played there when he was there. He's been back for a second stint. We got to be around him. The guy's a technician, and he knows how to coach up that O-line. He brings back a lot of experience as a guy who's been at major P5 programs across the country. And I think he's just one more resource there in the offensive room for Aaron Roderick, who clearly needs some help kind of in the run game to get that spark. And if he comes back and he's a run game coordinator, I think he provides a lot of value to that offensive room. But this offensive line group, it struggled. There's it's obvious. Everyone knows that. And I think that the type of discipline and the technical side that he brings, I think it would prove pay dividends for this offensive line. I think you see vast improvement beginning as soon as next year with that offensive line, what he can do.
Dave, we saw ETN. For example, you and I break down film for AFR, And there were plays where, like, he just wouldn't block someone. And it almost looked like he was confused. Then there would be other plays where he knew what he was doing, and he would come down and he would literally obliterate somebody. And we'd go, oh, who's that dude? Does that get fixed if Jeff Grimes is the guy?
It has to. When you have that big of a body, that big of a human, and when he shows potential in certain plays to go down, like you said, and wash down the entire right side of the defensive line, and then the next play he whiffs on a block because he just lets him loose. That's a learning thing. I mean, he's got the skill, he's got the ability, he's got the size. Now it's, can you simplify the offense? If he's not getting it, you got to simplify it and find ways to teach him. This goes back to, I remember my days, we did one of those color wheel tests where every player had to take this test, this personality test, that tells you kind of how you learn. What's the best way to learn? Is it imagery, right? Is it drawing on the board? Is it reading? Is it verbal? And so I think that's something that these coaches, that's their job. They got to find out, how do I get to each specific kid? How do they learn? And maybe Etienne, maybe the way he's learning is not the way the other kids are learning. So you got to adapt the way you teach to each player. And so I would say that that's the first thing. You come in and you find a way, how do I get this guy to perform and not miss on blocks? Because when he doesn't miss and when he's doing a job, he was dominant. But listen, there were lots of times this year that everyone saw where he whiffed on blocks or he completely wrong assignment. And it cost BYU. You had free runners to the quarterback, and some of those resulted in turnovers. And so got to find a way to get that fixed. And listen, that's the type of guy Grimes is. He's once again, he's a technician. I think that's something he could definitely clean up. Transfer
portal open today. It's completely nuts already. You got quarterbacks who are supposed to be in New Year's Six Bowls, who are putting themselves in the portal, like Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma's quarterback. Ohio State's got some guys. Texas has some starters. They're in the playoff, and they got guys going into the portal. We haven't seen anything like it. This year's going to be bigger than the previous 2 years because the underclassmen have figured it out. I can get a pay raise, and I might be able to get a starting job without having to earn it. And so it's just piling up. What do you? We're going to have a couple thousand people in this portal before we're done.
I think that's the biggest worry, right? I think this it gets overburdened, and all of a sudden coaches and staffs are like, I can't sift through 2,000 kids. And next year, there's going to be some kids that are left out to hang, and they don't have a place to go back to because their scholarship's been taken by another portal kid. So this portal thing's wild. It is the wild, wild west. I think to your point, a lot of these coaches are trying to get ready for bowl games. They don't have time to go sift through the portal. Fortunately, there's kind of a dead period now between now and bowl games, but so they hopefully get a head start on it. But, for a lot of these other schools that are playing in bowl games, it's tough. You're trying to balance two things. But listen, I actually don't hate the portal. I think it's, adds a whole new element, and it allows kids that are in bad opportunities to go find better. I think it just needs a little more oversight. The kids need some representation. I mean, you think about NFL free agency, you all have agents. Yeah. This day and age, some do, some don't. And there just needs to be a little more structure to it. But I agree. The whole thing's wild. And to your point, Dave, too, it's getting larger and larger every year. And so the question is, how do you manage this as more and more kids continue to enter? I don't know. That's something that the NCAA's got to take a tougher look at.
How much of this, Dave, do you think, first a comment, don't they have to have caps? I mean, they do in the NFL and the NBA. Like, it's just crazy. Ohio State's starting quarterbacks in the transfer portal and is saying, I probably need $2.5 million. $2.5 million. And then Dylan Gabriel, who already transferred from Central Florida to Oklahoma, is now in the transfer portal again. So with that, how many of these kids are just in the portal right now to leverage themselves to get more money and go back to where they're going? Do you think that that's happening right now? Like, let's say Dylan Gabriel, is he just going, okay, Oklahoma, people are willing to pay me $2 million out there. I'm willing to stay, but you got to pay me $2 million. Is that actually happening?
I mean, if history proves right, how many of those kids actually went back? I mean, BYU had Cody Epps that tested the waters for 12 hours, right? I mean, I think it was the very next day he decided to come back. I don't know how many of them actually end up going back to the same university. And I listen, there's some burned bridges that happen there too, where kids leave and the school feels slighted and coaches move on, emotionally. I don't know. I mean, yes, if you're a top player like a Dylan Gabriel, he probably can go back to Oklahoma and get some more money. I think there's some leverage plays there, but we're talking a handful of kids, right? Same thing with Al State. I mean, there's probably a dozen or two kids that have that type of leverage, and the other, call it 1,900 kids, don't.
Right. And they think they might.
They think they might. Yeah, they think they might.
And BYU's probably not going to get one of those kinds of kids, but maybe they get some of the other 1900s. So Dave did a great article on BYU's shopping list out of the portal. What's your thought on what BYU needs to do in the portal?
I think two things. I think you got to go back and find a quarterback. I like what I saw from Jake this year. Yes, he had some mistakes. And yes, we've talked about AFR where that happens with young quarterbacks. But I think he can be coached through that. And he's going to learn. He's got a whole offseason to go back and watch this film and see all the mistakes he made. So I'm not done with Jake Redsop by any means. But I do think now with Keenan being gone, I think you need a veteran quarterback that can come in there and mentor him and that can push him. Competition breeds success, right? Competition makes the cream rise to the top. So you've got to find a way to find another quarterback that can push him and maybe even take his job. But I think quarterback first and foremost, and then I've harped on this for years now, and for me, it's all about the defensive line. BYU, in order to play Jay Hill's scheme the way he wants to play it, they've got to go out there and get the big dudes, similar to what, frankly, Utah has. And I know that's tough to say, and it's tough to find because those guys come at a premium. But they've got to shore up that defensive line. I think BYU traditionally recruits great at linebacker, safety, corners. BYU's very young in that position group as well. So I think BYU's okay there. But that defensive line is something where, having Tyler Batty come back, that was welcome news. But I think you need some more nose tackles and bigger bodies in the middle that just help plug some holes to allow these linebackers to run a little more free.
Yeah, all right. Block eaters.
In our last 3 minutes with David Nixon, our friend and BYU TV football analyst, let's say you're the commissioner of the college football playoff, and here it is Monday night, and you're still being bugged about the selections of Michigan, Alabama, Washington, and Texas, and you say what?
Listen. We only have 3 minutes. I mean, I am still irate about they got it wrong. They got it wrong.
Who should they have had?
I'm on like 4 different text threads with buddies.
You don't want Bama in this nonsense, right? Bama should not be in, right?
No, Florida State should be in this. I don't care if they're on their third string quarterback. Their second string quarterback is going to be the one playing in the playoff game. And then you tell me what's wrong with a 3-0 result? What if their defense goes out there and shuts out Michigan, right? Like, that's football. Like there's 22 players on the field. I think they got it wrong. I think it's a travesty. You got Florida State who's undefeated, won their conference championship. Alabama had their shot when they played Texas. They lost to Texas. That was their shot. It's done.
At home, by the way. At home, right?
Yeah, but I'll tell you what. Alabama looked like the best team in the country when they beat Georgia on Saturday.
Yeah, but they didn't look the best when they almost lost to Auburn. They had to have a Hail Mary to beat true. Auburn. So it's like, any given Saturday, any of these teams can look great or look bad. But you got to go by the records, and the records is Florida State had the best record between those two. And
thank goodness we go to 12 teams. Thank goodness we go to 12 teams next year, right, Dave? Because there's no telling if you go 12 teams this year. Who's to say that Oregon doesn't get hot and win the whole thing, or Ohio State doesn't get hot and win the whole thing? Like it's a travesty we're not at 12 teams this year because this year really points out that it needs to be more.
And this year is interesting because I feel like, honestly, I was talking to somebody about this today, between college football and NFL, there's not really a clear-cut champion this year. Like, if you told me that in the Final Four, Michigan being 1, Alabama 4, I think any of those teams in this playoff could beat each other. And I have no idea who's going to win the championship. Usually we're always like, it's Georgia, it's a toss, shoe in, just get it done with. NFL, it's easily the Kansas City. Look what happened in Kansas City last night.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's so fun about this college and pro football season this year. There's no clear-cut champion. Eagles go out there and get dominated by the 49ers. I mean, it's just any given Sunday, right? Any given Saturday in college football. That's what's going to be so fun about the next couple months for both leagues is anything can happen.
Next, let's say Alabama, which I think they will beat Michigan, and then I think they will win the national championship if they play like they played Saturday. If they play like they did against Auburn, then Michigan will beat them. But Michigan put me to sleep against Iowa. I was like, come on, Michigan. But if Alabama wins it all, do you still feel the same? You still hold your ground that Alabama shouldn't have got in?
Yeah, because who's to say that Florida State wouldn't have beat Michigan and then gone on to beat Texas and Washington? I mean, they were undefeated. I mean,
Georgia could beat them all. Ohio State could beat them all. Oregon could beat them all. So, should Oregon be –
But Florida State with their quarterback, I mean, they were so bad the other night. Their defense was awesome.
I will say it was bad. It was bad. But their defense stepped up. Louisville's a top 20 offense that they held with, 6 points? I mean, if it's a defensive game, like I said, they win 3-0, 6-3, then that's game of football. Kudos to them for having a great.
By the way,
you don't have to have an offensive shootout.
I'm with Dave. I feel like an undefeated Power 5 conference champion has to be in. And Alabama lost, and the fact that they lost to Texas at home, and it was a 10-point loss, and that they struggled against Auburn. I'm just like, you know,
September was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, they didn't. Auburn wasn't a long time ago. They looked
Auburn
like crap
was
against
No,
Auburn.
but Saturday was most recent, and I think that's probably what got the
Anybody can
committee
play.
going. Okay.
So that means that the 49ers will win the Super Bowl without question because they just killed the Eagles, who are the best team. No, because I guess they could play 2 weeks from now, and the Eagles could put it on the Niners the same way the Niners just
That's
put it
true,
on the
but they
Eagles.
got like 6 more weeks of the regular season for those guys.
No, but what I'm saying is,
The
it's
bowl
just because
season's
Bama
right
was
now.
great last week against Georgia doesn't mean that they're the best team in the country.
If we're just going to take into account the championship games, then why even play the regular season?
Right.
Let's just jump straight to the championship then. Play Alabama and Georgia in every championship. I mean, just
Are there any of these New Year's Six bowls, Dave, that you're loving? So Florida State has Georgia in the orange, Ohio State and Missouri in the cotton, Penn State and Ole Miss in the peach, and then the Fiesta Bowl is Oregon and Liberty. Any of those jump out at you?
you probably won't like my response, but for me, it's tough to like any games because who knows who's going to play in them.
Right,
Like,
That's a
exactly.
good point.
There's a good chance all these kids sit out, and it's not even the same team.
A USC's
That's why
quarterback.
Honestly, that's why the 12-team playoff will be great because there's something to play for.
Yeah.
Because right now, as it is, this 14 playoff and the bowl games, it's a broken system.
Even Caleb Williams said he's out.
Yeah.
He's out for the Holiday Bowl.
Think about that.
I mean, who
the
cares
Rose
now?
Bowl, for Pete's sakes. So the last 2 years, Utah plays in the Rose Bowl. And do you remember 2 years ago, Ohio State? It's just like, oh, bah humbug. We're not in the college football
They
playoff.
had like 19 starters.
We're in the stinky
Yes,
Rose
they
Bowl, and 19 kids sat out. I mean, they still won.
That's what I'm saying. So for me, it's tough to get excited for bowl games because it's all the backups because all the stars are like, I'm headed in NFL.
That's a great point. I'm not going to disagree with you, Dave. I think
I'm going to watch them all, but I don't disagree. I don't.
Yeah, listen, I'm watching every single one. Don't get me wrong.
It's still
I'm
better.
like,
between
I
the
soak up
portal,
as much football as I can.
and everybody's sitting out, this thing is broken. Can you be the commissioner of the NCAA and fix this thing, Dave?
Why not?
Next,
Why not?
look,
He's not doing anything else, so might as well.
we're grateful to have you on tonight. Our advice to your son from the Wise Guys tonight is we want to see 10 3-point shots attempted.
Yes.
It's like we're not quite going Mark Pope on you with 35. We're saying 10. Tell him we want to see 10.
Hey, he might only hit 1 to 10, but I'll tell him.
That's all
Okay.
right. That's
hey,
all right.
and just tell him, don't hesitate to shoot.
Just shoot.
Just shoot
I
it.
like it.
All right, brother. Thanks
Okay.
for joining us.
All right,
See
guys.
ya.
Always
David
fun.
Dixon.
Appreciate it.
Our colleague of a long, long time on BYU TV with After Further Review and all the things we do, and played in the NFL, was a star at BYU. We don't just like him because he's Taysom's brother-in-law, but we like the fact that he is Taysom's brother-in-law because we get the inside scoop.
Yep,
And
it's
so
fun.
we
And-
appreciate that.
And Dave and you and I and Bilo, we've watched a lot of games together over the years, and we watch them very differently than most people watch them because we literally sit and break down the game because we know that we've got to come back on Tuesday with After Further Review and break down specific plays, and so it's really fun. I've always said we ought to do a live stream from the green room while we're watching a game and just listen to all the stuff that's going on, but we might get in trouble.
Yeah.
We might get in trouble with that.
Sometimes it's best to not have a live mic in there. Doug Wilkes is going to join us in just a couple of minutes. He's the editor of the Deseret News. We've got our Cougar Board question of the week. You ready? This is, if you're not familiar with Cougar Board, it's the largest online community of BYU fans. Thousands of posts daily. Wise Guys is on there all the time. There's our pictures. I might put the Jet shirt. They're trying to get Zach to start again this week.
Yeah, I just saw
So
that.
I might wear my
just saw
Jet
that
shirt
today.
again.
If
I'm not sure.
if Zach starts again, I'm back on board. But I still think they're the worst organization in all of professional sports.
Some New Yorkers were tweeting what the hang-up was, and I answered, and I said, you know what? I think it's his life insurance company isn't going to cover him if he
won't
goes back
cover
out there due to that offensive line. All right, here's the question from the Cougar Board insider, Dilbert. What do you think were the main underlying issues that kept the offense from working very well this year? How fixable do you think those issues are this coming off season?
Yeah, believe me, there were multi-factor, it's multifactorial. So one of them is what we just talked about with Dave Nixon there for a bit. So let's start with that. There seemed to be a lot of confusion throughout the entire season on the offensive line. Very few times did we see guys actually line up and block the guy they're supposed to block and get beat. What we saw was hesitation. Am I supposed to go down here, or am I supposed to combo to this guy? And then they wouldn't get where they were supposed to be quick enough, or didn't take the right step, and a guy comes through the gap, or I step over here and a completely free player comes through. I saw that more this year than I've seen in any year that I can remember at BYU. It's completely unacceptable. And there's two reasons for that. One of them, they have a new line coach that's going to bring more discipline. The other is they started the season with 3 transfer offensive linemen that have never played in this program, starting for their first year in this offense.
And that seemed to be a thing.
And we were like, at the beginning, we were talking about, these are 3 guys that have started and have been really good. And I'm going to admit, I'm one of the guys that got a little too excited about that. I underestimated how important it is, especially at that position, to grow up guys that have at least been in your program for a year or so, that understand exactly all the calls and all the combos and have played together as a unit, and it really, really hurt. So I think the combination of not holding the guys accountable enough and the lack of experience of playing together hurt BYU. And do I think it's fixable? I absolutely do. Because I think there's enough young linemen in this system, and you can pick up a portal guy, right, or 2. I just don't think you can start 7 first-year guys on offense, no matter how much they've played elsewhere. And a lot of these guys, Aiden Robbins still looks like he's coming back. LJ Martin coming back. You've got some of the quarterbacks coming back. You got a whole group of wide receivers coming back. You have some young tight ends, and they may look for a tight end in the portal, but you got some young tight ends that have been growing up in the program that are coming back. So it will be a much more veteran offense. I think the accountability level on the offensive line will be better. And if you get Aiden Robbins back and he's 100% healthy all year long, that's the third factor.
Yeah.
Broke his ribs, tried to play with it. Hard to play hard when you can't breathe and when it really hurts.
That seems to be a key.
And look at Aiden Robbins the last couple of games of the season when he was, for the first time all season, 100% healthy. He was a beast.
Oh, yeah, and how about running him downhill?
Yeah. And
Just a suggestion.
So all of those things can be fixed. I also think somebody like Jeff Grimes comes in and says, hey, if I'm the run game coordinator, Aaron, this is the run scheme that fits this running back and these offensive linemen best, which we felt all year long, man, they run downhill a little bit more. And we saw at the end of the year when they did that, Aiden Robbins was at his best. So I have a resounding yes, it can be fixed.
All right.
I think this offense makes a bounce back this year. I think starting 7 new players wasn't a great idea. And I'm going to admit, I thought it was fine. And as the season played out, I'm like, you know what? I was wrong. You can't have that many new guys.
Yeah, we were all wrong on that. There's the Cougar Board question of the week. Hey, shout out to UNLV, by the way. They're in the bowl game against Kansas, the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, which is ironic because they're coming from Vegas where there's no guaranteed rates, even though they say that. All those years we spent calling UNLV when they're in last place. They're in a bowl game, and they deserve to be there. They won 9.
And for those of you that didn't pay attention, because there was no reason for you to, Dave for a lot more years than me, but Dave was the voice of the Rebels down there.
I became the voice of the Rebels when we went into the dark ages of the Mountain in the Mountain West Conference and lost all our rights. Right? BYU lost all its rights because the Mountain took them all. And so we kind of disbanded for a little bit. We were BYU guys during the preseason.
Yep.
And then when the conference game started, we were off doing different things.
And Dave,
the Rebels got back into a bowl
They were looking for somebody to do a lot of their preseason stuff down there locally. And Dave said, "Hey, I got a guy.
I know a guy.
He lives up in Utah." And so Dave and I used to be the voices of UNLV football and basketball for a while.
2 BYU guys voiced the Rebels. Some people had a hard time with that, but not the people who paid us.
No, and you know what? We were big UNLV fans. We were.
Yeah,
we were big UNLV fans. They were good to us, and they had good kids come through that program.
Bronson Kafusi is going to join us next week. Ross Oppo and Eric Mika on December 18th on the Wise Guys. Monday nights here forever. Did you see Puka over the weekend?
Oh, my
4
goodness.
catches, 105 yards, touchdown. The first Rams rookie to exceed 1,000 yards receiving. And he's just, I'll tell you what, I don't know what the bigger story is. Taysom's continual dominance or Puka Nacua or Fred Warner. I mean, you got 3 guys in 3 different positions, 3 different stages of their career. Just phenomenal.
But Puka's making a case for the best rookie receiver in the history of the league.
Yeah.
He's making a case.
Fred's the best, making a case, best linebacker.
Fred is the best linebacker in the National Football. I don't think anybody would argue with any of us that Fred Warner's the best linebacker in football.
And Taysom's the only guy doing all his stuff, ever.
There's nobody like him.
Yeah.
So whatever he's doing, he's the best at it.
You know, if Frank Gifford tried to tackle Taysom Hill, the health department would get involved to make sure it wouldn't happen.
Well, Don Meredith, who used to work with Frank Gifford, used to sing "Turn out the lights, party's over." He'd be singing it. He'd be singing it.
Hey, Puka, by the way, is playing the Ravens this week, so Kyle Van Noy is going to be trying to tackle Puka Nacua. And if I'm Puka, I avoid Kyle Van Noy at all costs.
If you're running a crossing route, don't run it on Kyle's side.
Jaron Hall might get back in action. We'll see as the Vikings play the Raiders. Fred Warner is at home against the Seahawks, and then Taysom, Jamal, and Danny, they're taking on the Panthers at home in a big game for the Saints. The Saints just can't figure it out. They just got to get out of their own way.
Yep.
All right, before we bring Doug in, women's soccer, let's wrap up a couple things with soccer. 20 wins, 2 losses, 4 ties. They lost in the semifinals of the College Cup. Stanford scored 2 goals in the first 4 minutes. And then there were no goals the rest of the match, and BYU lost 2-0. You just can't get behind that early at this stage of the game because the teams are too good.
No.
North Carolina was really good, and they got down 3-0 early and came back and won. But you can't make a living.
And North Carolina plays a different style than Stanford. Stanford's hung their hat on defense all year long. It's one of the top defensive squads in the country. And
so an awesome season for.
And I don't like Stanford style, by the way. I got in a big long discussion with my daughter-in-law. And I said, there's got to be something. And then I talked to Hillary Kafusi at church on Sunday about it, our former BYU goaltender. I'm like, what can we do for soccer to change teams that just play defense and then they get 1 goal and they park the bus in front? Or they play for ties all season long. And all of them said, we need to eliminate ties in the regular season. That'll force teams to play offensive a little bit more. You can't do a shot clock in soccer. But it took me back. I watched that match and it took me back to watching North Carolina run 4 corners offense and stall for 17 minutes and a half of a basketball. And then everybody said, this is so ugly. Let's put a shot clock. Well, that kind of soccer is ugly to me. I'm sorry. So I think they should eliminate ties during the regular season.
I think they should take a couple players off the field and allow
more
for
space.
more goals.
A couple players off the field and no ties.
Kind of what hockey's done.
Man, you and I are overhauling soccer.
I know. The purists probably mad at us. First team All-American, Brecken Mozingo and Levini Vaca. Third team All-American, Olivia Wade-Katoa. We send our shout-outs to them. And BYU ranked number 1 for 2 weeks during the season. That never happened.
And they beat UCLA. Yeah, it was awesome. It was
year.
A phenomenal season.
Nice start to life in the Big 12.
Yeah. How about women's volleyball? Finished 25-7. Another NCAA tournament for the women's volleyball team. They never miss. Another Sweet 16 appearance. And Arizona State, the 5, swept BYU, the 4, in the second round.
Yeah, they just pounded them.
Yeah. So
they were better. They were better that day.
Yeah.
BYU's now 64-0 against Weber State.
Yeah, they beat Weber in the first round of the NCAAs.
How about that? 64-0 against a team. You don't see that very often in anything.
Yeah.
Men's hoops, let's talk about them for a moment. DJ, can you fix my mic for a little bit? The audio seems a little off. Men's hoops are 7-0, up to number 14 in the AP Top 25. That's up 5 spots from last week.
Yeah.
Net ranking, the NCAA evaluation tool. That's what NET stands for, N-E-T. NCAA, E comes evaluation, and T is tool.
Yes, there you go.
BYU's number 2, Houston's number 1, Kansas is number 16. So that's got people scratching their head a little bit like, well, what is this? Yeah. What does this even mean?
Because remember, Kansas was preseason number 1. BYU was preseason number 100 and something.
Yeah. It's been amazing. Ken Palm, the number 6. First 7-0 start since 2010 with Jimmer. I mean, that's where we're at.
And we were talking about how they're so different than the last couple years. So let's use the Fresno State game as an example. They beat Fresno State 85-56 at the Delta Center last Friday.
Yeah,
Fresno State didn't have a chance. Like, they literally beat the living crap out of them. Jackson Robinson, 24 points. Spencer Johnson, 22. Both career highs. Jackson's he's blooming into a star.
Yeah.
He really is.
Off the bench.
Yeah. And Spencer's what he always has been. Spencer's been a star. He's the quietest star you're ever going to find, but he just quietly gets it done. And Jackson Robinson is blossoming. And Coach Pope told us before the season, Jackson Robinson has a chance to be a star. He just needs to play a little more consistently. Well, we've seen that out of him. And they out-rebounded Fresno 34-27. And what I like is they're taking care of the ball. They're playing this up-tempo. They're shooting threes. They're playing scrappy defense. They only turned the ball over 7 times against Fresno State.
Great performance.
Yeah.
Fusini Traore is day-to-day with a knee and a hamstring. Honestly, we don't think we're going to see him until the Big 12 comes back.
I think that's probably...
He's got 4.5 weeks to get healthy.
Get him healthy. They need that depth and they've been managing Ali Khalifa's been a revelation.
And Tiki Atiki, this is a great month for them to get minutes. There's a couple of big tests like tomorrow night, which you and I will be on the call with Spencer. Evansville at 7-1, BYU 7-0, 7 o'clock Mountain Time on ESPN Plus. The Purple Aces, they were picked 11th in the Missouri Valley.
They're just like BYU,
but they're playing good. They beat Northern Iowa on Saturday. Watch the end of that one in overtime, 91-89. Northern Iowa was picked second in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah.
So that's a big test. And then Saturday might be their biggest between now and Cincinnati.
Yeah, and when you say biggest, not only and one of the biggest teams they're going to play.
Yeah.
Carlson's a beast that plays for the University of Utah. The Utes are 5-2 right now. That game will be 5 p.m. on the Pac-12 network if you get that.
You can find that or BYU Radio. Probably easier time
BYU's
finding
been
that.
dominant in this series. They've won 12 of the last 16. This is the first and only true road game on the non-conference schedule for BYU this season.
Yeah,
which is and I'm fine.
Genius scheduling.
Yeah, I'm fine with that when you're in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Like in the past, it's like we got to go get some high RPI, high net games. We call them net in college basketball. Got to get some high net games. You don't need anything in the preseason. And look where BYU is in the net right now.
And we should point out San Diego State, who BYU beat on November 10th when they were 17th. They're now back in the top 25 at 25. They're 7-1. So that is never going to be anything short of a great win all season long. With what
and you and I were talking about it. We called that game. And we looked at that San Diego State team and we said, folks, this was a really good win for BYU because this is a good basketball team. San Diego State has length, athleticism. They can defend. They're going to win a ton of games this year, probably be ranked. That's a huge win for BYU.
Women's hoops are now 6-2. They've dropped 2 in a row. 12th ranked Utah beat them up in Salt Lake over the weekend. Lauren Gustin had a cool 17-17.
Yeah, 17-17.
I think I got that right.
That's normal for a 17.
Utah State is at BYU tomorrow, Tuesday, 3 o'clock Mountain. Spencer Linton and Kristen Kozlowski on the call. And then Boise State's at BYU Saturday afternoon at 2 Mountain, also on ESPN Plus.
So does Spencer have to do double duty tomorrow? Does he call the game and then come and do sideline for us for the men's game?
I think he calls the game, goes to get some massage, and then comes back.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that's what
I feel like that's okay.
That's what he's doing. Track and field, shout out.
Yeah, congratulations to women's cross country coach Diljit Taylor, Big 12 co-coach of the year. And honors just keep coming in for Diljit. She's been phenomenal.
I'm telling you, track and field, soccer, women's volleyball, they were Big 12 ready a long time ago.
And we knew that.
Yeah.
We knew that because they were competing on a national level.
We didn't think basketball was, and we'll find out if they are in January. But today, they look like they are.
Just let me tell you, I recognize they're number 2 in the net, and that they're number 6 in the Ken Pom rankings. If they finish in the middle of that league, like say they finished, let's say they finished 6th or 7th, you're still a single-digit seed in the NCAA tournament. I would be thrilled for this BYU basketball team to finish 7th in that league.
Yeah.
Even as good as they've been. Now, I may be underestimating them. Maybe they're better than I thought, but I would be thrilled for them to finish 6th or 7th in that league.
Hey, since we were last on the air, the 2034 Winter Olympics, Salt Lake City, Utah was named the preferred host for those Winter Games, which means they're going to get it. Barring some wild, unexpected technicality. BYU grad, the man behind it all, Fraser Bullock, and we send him a shout out. He's Mr. Olympics and has been. He doesn't age. He still wears the same leather jacket he wore in 2002.
He looks the same.
And anyway, we give a shout out to Fraser. We're going to get him on this show. And what a big get for Utah 10 years from now. But you know what? We'll all still be here, and Wise Guys will be in its 12th season. Our guest here with us is a BYU grad who's been in the journalism business for over 4 decades, has been the editor of the Deseret News since 2016. We welcome our friend Doug Wilkes to the Wise Guys. We've been hanging out in our green room listening to David Nixon, who you have a personal relationship with from years ago. And
yeah, Dave was in Salt Lake City. I'm still in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
But why are you bringing me on? You guys are riffing. You drop more names here.
This is just this was the warm-up band for the main event.
Yes, we're thrilled that you're here.
The Cougars are, and really what they're doing in the NFL. I mean, not that I'm here to talk about that, but to have stars in the NFL at different positions. Right?
On so many teams.
That's what's amazing. You might have had a lineman before or somebody else, but now you've got...
We didn't even mention Andy Reid.
Yeah, and Andy Reid is he's the best coach in the league right now.
Number 3 all-time in wins.
And we didn't mention, and they're not playing as well this year, but Tyler Algier was a rookie running back that rushed for 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Jamal Williams led the league in scoring last year, and touchdown scored last year. Like, it's just like, it seems like BYU's guys that are in the league are all performing at a really, really high level. That's nice for BYU.
I think it's great. It's great for the national profile. Great for the Deseret News. We love people are seeking out this content. Puka Nacua, we know we have to have Puka Nacua news every weekend because people want to see what did he do.
Yeah,
so,
and
really
he's a great soundbite and a fun kid. Win, lose, or draw. And we got to know him, obviously, covering him at BYU. And same thing with all the others. Kyle Van Noy's back, having a phenomenal.
Yeah.
Joins the team late in the year, and he acts like he's been there the whole time with the Ravens, who've had a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
He came on the show and told us his whole plan, and then he did it. Like, he's like, I do not want to
lay low all summer.
I'm too old for camp. I'm going to lay low. I've told my agent, I do not want to do camp. I'll just lay low, and then something will come up after the season started, and I'll join a good team. And
well, they're smart. They can play defense. They can see, and then they go to the right place at the right time and make the play.
He's like, he is so good.
All right, let's talk some football and get serious here. And we're going to start by going back to 1977.
Yes.
That's the year.
During that year, Elvis died. Gas was 65 cents a gallon. Star Wars debuted at the movies. And a young Doug Wilkes was a member of BYU's junior varsity football team. And you have said this was such a crucial year for BYU football and what it meant to everything since. How come?
Well, look at what happened. So 1974, Title IX begins to come up. Scholarships get limited. It used to be, like when I was in high school, you knew that schools like Nebraska, Ohio State, USC, they were getting kids on scholarship and then putting them in a closet so that the competition didn't get them. So now the scholarship rules start to change. By 1997, you have in camp, you have Jim McMahon, Mark Wilson, Gifford Nielsen.
Yeah.
Gifford Nielsen already had a national profile. You have Todd Christensen at running back. He later becomes great as a tight end for the Raiders. You have Bill Ring, who became a great running back with the Niners. Bill Ring's locker was right next to a guy named Gary Peterson. I don't know if you remember him. 6'4", 270 pounds. And 270 now is light. But back in those days, he had 30 pounds on everybody else. So you're on the cusp of something really, really amazing. And they're blowing out, they're winning 72-6, right? So everyone's looking at what are they doing at BYU? So that was kind of a remarkable time to be in camp.
What was it like hanging out, wearing a uniform and being part of the program with these megastars?
Yeah, so let me be clear. The people you have on this show are football players. I never played a varsity down.
Yeah, but you played junior varsity, which is more than me. And I'm on this show every week.
Junior varsity, you'd get together on a Thursday after practice. Lavelle would bring
get ready to go play Air Force, right?
Well, yeah, you just get there, and they say, okay. You're not scheming anything. You're saying, all right, who's playing this week? Okay, Doug, go. You're going to do punts. And then they have Bill Shefflin was a freshman that year. Bill Shefflin's claim to fame, of course, blocking the punt in the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah.
You had Mark and Steve Brady, who were from Tennessee. I don't know if anybody knows
I remember the Brady twins really well.
Twins. So you had a lot of guys coming in there. There was a quarterback in that year, too, Mark Heinrich from Saratoga High School.
That's right.
But, he's in there with, 3 NFL guys, so he moves on. There's no transfer portal. You either play or you don't.
Right, but for a guy, the ladies don't know the difference between who's on the JV.
Steve Young told us a JV football story because Andy Reid was coaching the JV team when Steve was a freshman. And Andy said, hey, we're going to go play these guys. But we got Steve. Let's run the option. So they went and ran the option with Steve.
What you literally did that. It was playground football, and we'd beat you beat Air Force, you beat Dixie, Rick's College. We beat, and you're just playing.
Was Snow back? Did you go play Snow back in those days?
Snow down in
So
Ephraim.
Snow, Air Force had a JV program, Rick's College, all of those.
All those guys. And so you had 6 games, and you're only a few years removed from freshmen being able to play. Right, Jim McMahon came in and he punted as a freshman, but it's only like a year or 2 since they had that kind of eligibility. But it was just an awesome time to be there, working with Lavelle, seeing, Glenn Tuckett, Doug Scoville, those are the guys who got me out of California, and they become legends. Dick Felt was the DB coach. I was the defensive back.
Oh, I love Dick Felt.
Did you?
Yeah, one of my favorites.
He was great. Unless you weren't great.
So what you're saying
your
is
love for Dick is probably a little
different from yours.
Well, I went over and ran the prep offense a lot my freshman year for the first defense, and the defensive coach Fred Whittingham recruited me, And so Fred was always good to me. When the D lineman would hit me, he would like get all over him, and Dick Felt would be like, "Hey, you're giving us a good look." So they were really, really good to me.
Yeah, and that's when I was a freshman too. We're running defense for the first team offense. So again, Gifford Nielsen, Mark Wilson, Todd Christensen. There was a great receiver named Mike Chronister.
We know Mike well. Yeah.
I still think he's one of BYU's best ever.
He was ahead of his time too, because he's a big physical guy. He'd be a big physical guy now.
I remember playing defensive back, covering him, and he'd be like a foot over my head.
Yeah.
He'd be like, where does this come from? He made one of the greatest catches that I've seen against, I think it was Kansas State, that in 1977. Didn't have YouTube. We go check all this stuff.
Yeah.
You can see if I'm lying or not.
No, that's like those are great. Those are great players.
So you're on a bus, and one of your JV moments, you're on a bus, you're listening to Paul James. You're listening to Paul James call the BYU Oregon State game. Yeah. And I was in another part of the land listening to the same broadcast. So we were linked long before we've ever got to know each other. But that's the game that Gifford breaks his leg.
Yeah, so we had gone up to Rick's College. It's the coldest day of my life, literally. I went on a mission to Sweden. Never as cold as it was up at.
I can confer. I had a year at Rick's. I confer that's a different place.
Yeah. The wind always blows there, right?
Oh, yeah.
It always blows there. I caught punts that day, so it's like, swirling and freezing. I'm a California kid. Right. It's just amazing. But anyway, we're coming back on the bus. We're listening to the game, listening to the broadcast. We had heard that Gifford was going to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated the following week. And then we hear, oh, he's down, he's out, and they take him out. The bus is silent. I mean, literally silent, because he's hurt.
Yeah.
And then we get all the way back home. We hear, of course, he's done. I mean, it was crushing, heartbreaking. In practice that week, Mark Wilson did a great job, and then he goes out and throws 6 touchdown passes the next weekend.
Yeah,
right.
But still, you're just heartbroken for this guy who is lifting BYU. Then Mark lifts it,
and you're in the middle. You're in the middle of all this. I mean, that makes you unique.
Well, the thing that was so great. I mean, this is about how the locker room looked here.
We tried to make it vintage 1977.
Yeah, I mean, you're just going in there. The weight room was old weights, Nautilus machines. Someone said, "Yeah, we might get a Nautilus machine."
Your weight room was in the old Smith Fieldhouse, right?
Yeah, and
at the end of the basketball court, like through a couple of doors. Yeah,
yeah, just weights, trying to do that. I mean, we didn't have separate film rooms for everyone. It's just like you're just playing ball. So it was great, but now I look at these facilities and I'm going, holy smokes.
Well, and the facilities are phenomenal. The players are bigger and stronger. You mentioned like a guy like Peterson that was 270, and now you got Kingsley Suamateia that's 6'6" and 315 and runs like a linebacker.
Well, that's the point, right? Yeah. I mean, they're phenomenal athletes. I do feel like I was playing in the dark ages, but when we were playing, we thought we were just this amazing players. But now it's just amazing.
We want, and you get exposure to a lot of things as you oversee everything that Deseret News is covering. This portal thing that's going on right now, we talked to Dave Nixon a little bit about it. It's changing the game. What's your thought about the transfer portal, NIL money? Where are we going with this?
Well, Deseret News, we're fighting. It's costing us a lot of money, but we're fighting to get NIL records. Right? People are saying these are education records, and no, that's nonsense.
Why do you want the records?
We want the records because we want transparency, so it's not abused.
Right.
You have millions of dollars coming into players,
or at least promised to players.
What's it going to do for women's sports? Women's sports, they've worked so hard.
Yeah.
Now the disparity between men and women is going to be phenomenal, but it won't be if you can get transparency on that. If you can shine a light on that, you'll have some stars that are doing really well, but you need to have some accountability in that space.
Right now, it's all kind of done in back rooms, and nobody really. And you hear rumors, and so how did you go about? We've read a little bit about it. University of Utah, for instance, Utah State. These are state institutions. Is that your wedge to get in and be able to get this information?
Yeah, I mean there are laws, different laws that are in place to shine a light on public records, public money. It doesn't apply to Brigham Young University. I think BYU should release that as well. Just put it out there.
They're going to look really good because they're not giving anybody, they're not giving everybody a truck.
Well, people are, that's right. But it is having a tremendous impact. And now you look at the University of Utah, their second and third string quarterbacks are gone. So now you have Cam Rising, 7-year quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay. BYU used to get hit on the head for kids go on missions and come back. It's just 7 years, come back, make some money. then they'll throw the keys to the car to Zach Wilson's little brother, right?
Yeah.
But everyone's calculating. Everyone's trying to see, can I get a better deal or can I go somewhere else? When I was there, I remember talking to Bill Shefflin, and I'd come back off a mission, and I see Bill in the library. So now he's a junior. He's doing pretty well. And I said, how's it going? You enjoying it? And he says, coaches come up to me and say, well, we're bringing in a JC transfer. I don't know if you're going to play next year. So every step of the way, you're never quite the guy. There's always someone. That's
how you keep your edge, right? They're supposed to recruit over the top of you. That's what we were all used to.
So, but now could you do that if they're going to pay someone to come take your job?
Now, if you bring somebody in and you pay them, they're expecting you to take the job. So now they transfer.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. I mean, Stanford's in the dumper because they don't know how to do it with their standards.
Right.
I just don't know how you can move forward.
It seems to me that the transparency that the paper is getting also protects the player who is promised a certain amount and gets there and doesn't get it. And then there's at least a public record of, hey, this place promised you $200,000 and you haven't gotten a penny, and this gives you some recourse to say, hey, this wasn't done on a handshake, and I came here because you promised me to pay me, and now you're not paying me. Right now, there's no recourse.
Well, look at the truck deal, right? So those are truck leases. So media, we come along, others come along and say, everyone at the university, 65 cars given, or 85. What was it?
I don't even remember.
Something like that.
It was like
nobody brought one to my house.
Every scholarship player gets a truck. All right, it's pretty brilliant. They're not giving them the truck. It's a lease. How much is a lease for a year? A few $1,000s, and then it's done. But without the transparency, you can't look at the deal. You can't see what exactly is happening. And what is happening in the women's game. I think Title IX, 1974, now you're here 50 years later. You better be looking. You better be really, really careful about what's going to happen to all the other programs except for football and basketball for men. Right.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, especially outside of the P5s, where there isn't as much money being thrown around from Fox and ESPN and CBS.
P5 I get so angry about because it's just baloney. I remember when P5s first started. That wasn't part of the language. P5 is only people with more money. And then it became that for 20 years, and BYU gets left behind. BYU's been a phenomenal program every step of the way. Absolutely deserves the national championship. But just like Florida State, people will continue to disparage them if you're not in the money pool.
Well, and then, we had the P5 language and then the Bowl Alliance and now the CFP, where it's like the haves, the insiders with the money, have been doing everything they can to keep the outsiders from being able to participate at their level. Are you concerned that with NIL and all of this, that the gap gets bigger now?
Something's going to blow up. I mean, you can't have 1,000 people in a portal, and you do, and have the bowl system do what it does. Next year, it'll be 12 teams in a playoff, and people will take a pause. And then the year after that, something will happen. But every step of the way, this is going to be minor league team, and the NFL is going to have to get involved. I think within 5 years, you see the NFL doing something to establish a protocol, to establish rules. And college football is already different than we thought it was. It'll be something brand new, in my opinion.
The NFL and the NBA are way more regulated because there's a draft, there's salary caps, there's fines that are paid. If you like, there's enforcement mechanisms. I never thought I'd see the day where I would say, yeah, professional sports is way more monitored, way more equitable than college sports.
Well, do you wish you were playing now, or are you glad you played when you did? I know it's kind of a bizarre question, but
well, Robert and I. It's hard to say Robert and I.
Yeah.
Right? So it sounds like I'm saying Robert and I. He and I talk about it all the time.
Sounds like a town on the North Shore.
He always says to me, Blaine, you were 30 years ahead of your time. The big hang up on you always was, hey, you're only 6 feet. And we want 6'4", 6'5" quarterbacks. And now there's 6 foot quarterbacks all over the place, and they move the quarterback around, and there's RPOs. So I fit way better into today's offenses than I fit into the 7-step drop, stand in the pocket, deliver it downfield offense. So my skill set would be way better for today's game. But I don't know that I would like all the nonsense that's I love the way the game was and why we played back when I played. You played for the logo on your chest, and you played for your university.
You would never think about sitting out a bowl game.
Can I tell you? So they decided Robbie was going to be our starter, and Frank Kush from Arizona State immediately contacts me. Come down here. You can start for us down at Arizona State.
Which is a violation, right?
It absolutely is a violation. So
wouldn't be Frank's first.
But no, does that surprise anybody? But that one, and I thought about it for a minute, and I just thought, no, I committed to these guys. I don't know if Robbie's going to get hurt or if, I got to stay here. These are my guys. Like nobody thinks like that anymore. And I stayed, and you know what? We end up getting a national championship. I play in that game. I play a lot those 2 seasons.
Yeah, you have that key national championship moment where it all could have fallen apart.
And I don't regret 1 minute staying, because everything that I've done since that point was set up by that time that I stayed with that group of people and the network of the people that we were around then, and BYU's network, and players have a hard time seeing that, and I don't know that that's like it used to be.
Well, BYU's special. I mean, I talk about 1977 to 1980 to 84. I mean, the innovative offense, the coaching tree with, Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, that just continues for 50 years. I mean, over and over and over again. The special players coming through, I think the standards are essential. You have to have high standards. It's just a special place to be. And I don't say that as, having gone to BYU. It's just a special place to be.
We say that on the show all the time because we're the wise guys.
Well, and it's funny. We have lots of friends that we work with. Brian Logan's a perfect example, who subs in for us once in a while here and works on shows with us. And he calls himself, what does he call himself? I'm a double minority. Yeah. He says, I'm a double minority. We were like, what does that mean? And he says, well, I'm African American, and I'm not LDS. So I'm not a member of the predominant faith. So I'm a double minority. And he goes, and I wouldn't change coming to BYU. He goes, I had such an unbelievable experience because of the culture and what I learned and the networks I have. So you don't have to come and be a member of the predominant faith to have a great experience there. And people are learning that.
And you guys are part of that. I mean, but this show is really great. I thought the Mark Wilson interview was fascinating because I didn't know that. I went on a mission. I didn't know he almost left. I didn't know the offense blew up. Then coming back, you kind of see, oh my gosh, that was fantastic. And you've had a lot great interviews. So yeah, keep it up. You got a lot of fans.
You're on our list. You're in the group.
You're in the
group. Doug Wilkes is the editor.
How many have
of the Deseret News?
How many have turned off since I've been here?
Since you've been here.
They're all
by
here.
the way, Forrest Gump 12 Abel just joined us from Beaumont, Texas. And Coog Dude is in from Durham, North Carolina. We got live streamers all over the world.
My brother Rusty's watching in New York. So
in New York?
Very nice.
Hey, Rusty.
Is he in the city? Is he or upstate?
He's upstate New York. He's in Jimmer Fredette country, and he's got a lot of Fredette.
He's up
stories.
Albany area.
Yeah. Clifton Park.
Up there. Yeah. So I'm from New York. So.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I grew up in upstate New York. So
we've got some more football for you here in a sec. But let's take a left turn for a moment. The Deseret News is going to turn 174 this next year. How hard has it been to keep the paper relevant the way we've changed our reading habits over the years?
Very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's older than the New York Times. You mentioned it on your lead-in, how old it is. You just have to continue to push forward. Now, here's the thing. Salt Lake City, the Deseret News, a metro paper, we're a national paper, a national brand, international. So our aspiration over the past 5 years, 10 years, has to be something different. You have to be relevant. What can we bring that others don't bring? So we focus on truth. Truth is hard to come by these days. So we look at that. We're willing to take criticism, but we're willing to do something a little different. We still love covering the Wasatch Front. We absolutely do that. It's important because Utah, we think, has a special place, right? It's getting the Olympics again. And talking to Governor Cox today, I asked him specifically, I said, look, do you want to be one of those 3 host cities that are permanently in the rotation? He said, yes. So right now you could do 3 host cities and then they'll have a guest city. For the next 50 years.
Which is a smart idea considering the expense.
Brilliant. Well, no one has the facility. We could put on the Olympics in 6 months. Someone stands up and says we need 40,000 volunteers, whether it's the governor, a church official, whomever, and you're going to get them.
And you have the facilities.
And you have the excitement, and you've got the media. Right? I mean, BYU's got a truck. You want our truck? I mean, you just do what you need to do.
And think about this. By the time the Olympics comes, which is 34, right?
Probably.
You could have Major League Baseball could be here at that point. We already have NBA, NHL could be here at that. Like in the next 10 years, sports in this market are going to expand even more. What's your thought on that? And is that a good thing for this market to have all these major league sports teams and to have the Olympics? Is it good for Salt Lake City?
I think it's good. You want to keep the identity of Salt Lake City and Utah, right? There's something that makes this area special. You don't want to lose that. We talked to officials in California and in Portland and in Seattle, and without giving anything away, they looked at Portland and there's trouble up there, right? Yeah. There's infrastructure trouble, there's homeless trouble. Seattle, same thing, having some trouble. And it's not liberal versus conservative. It's simply, can you make the right decision at the right time and prepare this state so we can keep going? That includes Silicon Slopes and technology. It includes housing. Housing is one of the key issues going forward. Growth is coming, so it's not going to stop growing. Can you manage it in a good way? Can you provide education? Can BYU and the University of Utah have innovation centers that really work together? And people are talking. I mean, the rivalry is one thing, but the college presidents like each other.
Yeah, they get along a lot better than people have any idea.
Than the fans do.
Yeah, and as a fan base, I mean, I get snarky every now and again, but I live in Salt Lake. Most of my friends are on the Utah side.
Yeah, you have to defend yourself.
But it's a fantastic university. I mean, and they're great people up there. So, yeah, I still bleed blue, but there's a red cut in there every now and again too.
Listen, the history of the paper, the printing press comes across the plains with the pioneers. Arrives in the Salt Lake Valley in 1849. Started printing the Deseret News the following year. Why has the paper been so important to its owner, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Why is it so important to have a paper?
The church has always tried to get news and information, to the masses. Back before the pioneers came across, they had times and seasons. Yeah. They always had some way of saying, how do we get information out? And there has always been misinformation. So you need a vehicle to do that. And in 1850, it was, hey, we propose to do a small weekly that we'll have, and then it talks about the different things it'll have. It ultimately becomes a daily paper, afternoon paper, morning paper, And now you go from, 100 and something thousand circulation to millions and millions and millions every month. And it's like, well, yeah, why would you print a paper when you're reaching people who wherever they are here, they can come in and look at the Deseret News in 4 minutes. Just put it in there and get everything that Dave McCann is writing. So go to the Deseret News and search
if Brigham
Dave
Young
McCann.
Could have got away with not getting newsprint on his fingers and hit a button and have it all appear on his screen, I think he'd vote for that.
It is remarkable though, and it's work worth doing, right? That's the point. It's hard work, but it's work worth doing, and we really are trying hard to provide something valuable for those who will come to us.
You mentioned a minute ago, truth is important to you, and that's a commodity that's getting less and less out in the marketplace, especially with social media out there where there's no accountability to tell the truth whatsoever. So what's the biggest challenge facing Deseret News moving forward with all of that in mind?
Well, the financial model is tough, right? You have to earn your keep. You have to be valuable. And also being consistent, I think, is our number one thing. Influence is our currency. Being consistent gives us the ability to do that. Independence is important. Like, when the New York Times or the Washington Post is looking at what we're doing, or they contact us and we know them, we work as journalists together. But we also have Deseret Magazine, thought leadership, faith and thought. We feel a need to protect the First Amendment, but that's freedom of religion. That's freedom in the public square, the right to gather. All those things are being attacked and addressed, right? What's going on college campuses? Can you have free speech on college campuses? It's kind of amazing what's going on. Mm-hmm. So we feel like we want a place in there so that we can put forth news and information and commentary that really helps you understand the world around you.
Former BYU football player and editor of the Deseret News, Doug Wilkes, on the Wise Guys. My brother was on the JV basketball team, so he reminds me of it, so that he played, and I'm just like, oh, I'm good with that.
I got to tell you, here's my Dave McCann. First time I met Dave McCann, I'm working as BYU 1983 or something, and in the journalism program, and here comes this, and I'm in at the Daily Herald.
Yeah.
And Dave's some scrub kid
so
from
I was 13,
Orem.
I think.
Yeah, you were working at the Daily Herald at 13, right?
So,
something like that.
And
13.
two things. One, Dave walks really fast, and he always has. He walks really fast into the newsroom. I go, "Who's that kid?" And he says, "He's collecting string. He's getting it." It's great because you need prep writers. And the only thing different between Dave then and now is hair's back a little bit.
It's back a lot.
But the youthful face is exactly the same. But who knew I'd be on
hey, listen,
the world-renowned Wise Guys podcast with Dave McCann.
And I got $9.50 a story back then, and I get a little bit more now.
Yeah, well, I was making $220 a week, so that was my first. That was my first job.
That's amazing,
and I was glad to have it.
Those were great. Those were great times. I was still a paper boy for the Herald when I was writing. And so I would deliver papers with my own articles. Did I get any more tips from my people? No, I did not.
You were right. Yeah, we all you deliver papers? I deliver papers. I think we all deliver papers.
I didn't have a paper out, but our neighbor had one, and I delivered them a few times, and I said, why would anyone do this?
Yes. So we could get our own McDonald's money is what it was.
But I started in '83 when the floods happened. That's how I got involved, and my grades tanked, but I got clips, and back then you needed clips. So
people laugh at me when I say, well, if you guys could come back to '83 and see that they've built houses up here where there used to be a lake. I always get worried about that. Is it ever going to get back to that? I don't know. We want to, since you were a former player and a former football player, we're going to talk a little bit about football for just a minute. How do you feel about the first Big 12 season for BYU? And it doesn't have to be specific to football, about all these sports in the fall, but let's talk some about what you thought about football.
Okay, I talked about truth, so I'll tell you what I thought.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy when they go into and I like Kalani. I think he's honest and strong, but he says, yeah, we have to look at the film. There are plenty of things we can tweak and change, and we need to work and improve. But you're on game 8, game 9. Do that at game 2, game 3, or you have a 3 or 4 game skid. And it happened last year too, right? You've got to get in there and fix it. And, you're analysts, you're looking at this. Same with Hans Olsen. There's looking at it's schematic. If there are holes that are wide open, you're not in the right gap.
So sometimes I wonder, we don't, and we do get to watch film and talk to them once in a while, but one thing I've never heard a coach say, because they'll never do it, but just once I want a coach to say it. Nick Saban might say it sometime, but you know what? We've taught them the right thing every week for 7 weeks, and we just have some really stupid players. Like, we've gone through it like 9 times a day with these 3 guys. But and then the question is, will you not have enough depth to bench those guys? The guys that aren't doing it. But there's some of that every year too, because I know that coaches, and Klein doesn't have a lot of hair to pull out anymore, but where you just go, my goodness, how many times are we going to go through this gap? But then you have to step back and say, do we need to have a different teaching? I love that Dave Nixon, you were listening when where Dave said, if you got a guy that's really, really capable, but his problem is that every once in a while he's just lost, are you using the right learning method with that guy? And maybe you need to teach him completely differently. And isn't it on the coach to adapt the learning model for every single individual that he or she coaches to make sure that they get it? And so that's something they need to look at in the offseason.
So as I look at the season, there was a little bit of bad luck where you have 2 NFL quarterbacks go out, and now you bring in a transfer who has to see, and Keaton did what he did, and there were some good things seen. BYU has always been playing above average, playing like a P5 team, winning 5 Pac-12 games in a row. So you feel a little bit heartbroken that you took a step back, because it's not that you played well the last 2 games, which they did, but they got blown out in the 3 previous. If you didn't get blown out, if a fumble here, bad luck here,
would feel better.
You'd feel better. Yeah. You'd feel better about how competitive it was. And I did feel good about that last game. You lose in double overtime. It's heartbreaking, but that was a good game. Yeah. So I think the future's bright.
I go along with you. It's that definition of insanity. Doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. And sometimes it feels that way as you're watching it, going, you know what, we're going to run that zone read until until the end of time. And maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I think fans want to see, like you said, they want to see, hey, wait a second, this doesn't work, let's do something else, which doesn't mean, hey, revamp the whole offense. It just means show us that you spent 5 days at practice and you came up with something else.
And sometimes the best coaches, and there's a true skill to this, that they can come in the fall and they can look at a group of guys, whether it's on offense or defense, and go, you know what? The strength of this group of guys is this. So we're going to have to tailor what we do to that. I know I really like to run this, but these guys really don't fit that. They're a better fit for this. The best coaches in the country are the ones that can just tailor it a little bit one way or another. You have your core of what you're going to do based on the skill set of the guys that you have. And the ones that do that have success year after year after year, because you don't always get exactly what you want when you're out recruiting.
Well, and you've got...
In the NFL, you draft what you want.
You got to get 3 yards on first down, right? I mean, that's what was so infuriating about the Oklahoma State game.
Second
half. And all right, you went 3 and out on that first drive, but now over and over again, okay, pass play incomplete. I think I heard you both
6 times.
About this.
Yeah. 6 straight first downs.
It's just 6 straight second 10s.
And I get that they're trying to have faith in their guys, but that part's really hard.
Yeah.
But they're in it, and next year's BYU Utah game is going to be pretty fun.
It's going to be awesome. Eric Wade, our friend from Singapore, says Daily Herald paper boys unite. It was cheap labor, but teaches you that the news never sleeps.
That's awesome.
That's true.
I think back in the day at the Daily Herald, the news did sleep because it was we didn't have 24-hour cable news keeping the thing going on and on and on. Has that been good? Is the news and information is good. Is the 24-hour news cycle now? It was such a game changer on television, and then we stopped reading papers.
Well, it's good. It's good when you need it to be good. It's good when there's a national crisis.
Yeah.
It's good when there's a war you need to pay attention to. It's good when you need to hear the president speak. It's not good when all you have is a show and you have a producer for every hour show or 3-hour show, and they're all doing the same thing. And if they're stuck, they're putting a panel of journalists on. So you see the same 3 journalists talking about the Ukraine-Russia war, and then they'll be on there talking about the deficit. And they don't know anything about one of those. So that part drives me crazy. I mean, talk to people. It'd be like me talking about, here's what the national championship game was when I'm sitting next to a guy who was in there.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you do that? So that part of it is not great.
And then I thought that the news industry changed during COVID and President Trump's run when it just became cheap to get a room full of people together and have a moderator and a fight every hour all day long. And if you watched one channel, you felt this way. And if you watched another channel, you felt that way. And then when you met up with somebody at Costco, you got into a fist fight.
Well, media is still trying to deal with it. It's, they call it both sidism. Well, is it objective to have both sidism and there's a debate in media? Well, no, you got to find out what the truth is, or you need to save democracy. And if you think that Trump or Biden or whomever is hurting democracy, then some, usually the younger journalists, are going all in to try and defeat that person, which is not the tenet of journalism that I grew up with.
Right.
Yeah,
so that part's difficult.
Both broadcast journalism majors, and it's just like so counterintuitive to everything that we were taught in our training. Right? It's just like, we got to present balance and try to find truth somewhere in there, and not really inflect our opinion on it. Yeah. But that's not the way it goes anymore. Well, not in those formats.
And if you start complaining about Donald Trump, the person you're speaking with will start complaining about Biden.
Right.
And you'll both have something to complain about. So why don't you not complain and say, okay, well,
what can we do that we agree on?
Yeah, what's there to do? And that's what Governor Cox is doing. Disagree better, try and get it.
Yeah.
But hey, this has been fun at a time. I mean, I go on the Hinckley Report or some of these other brainy talk shows, and I'd much rather come talk 1977 freshman BYU football.
That's because we're stupid. We're not the brainy talk shows.
Hey, so we'll bring you back to sports.
It's like talking about your high school football career.
Hey, look,
we talked about football. What about the rest of BYU's fall sports? We do women's soccer and women's volleyball. And hey, surprisingly, because basketball starts in the fall, what about this basketball team right now?
Well, the basketball team, and I like hearing your calls. I'm going, what are these 2 football guys doing calling basketball? But you do a great job.
Tomorrow night.
We call basketball at UNLV too, both of us.
I didn't know that. That's great. Incidentally, trivia question. BYU had a 17-game win streak back in 81 or something. UNLV came into Cougar Stadium, threw a pass over into the corner and broke that.
Sam King was the quarterback.
Do you remember that game?
Yeah, I think Steve threw 5 picks.
Yeah, Jim was out. Jim missed that game.
I was at that game.
Came over the DB's head.
Had a minor injury that kept him out 2 games. Utah State and UNLV that year. I was on the team that year.
But that's how good BYU was in those years leading up to the national championship. 17-game winning streak, winning by huge margins. So if you lost a game, it was like, wait, what?
Yeah, what just happened? Well, and in your mind, you would go, well, that's an aberration. We don't know what happened, but that will never, ever happen again.
They still talk about that in Vegas.
My favorite, the sport I watch is...
Sandusky was the wide receiver, Jim Sandusky. He was good.
He was good.
Yeah.
Tom Homo was back there trying to defend passes.
Yeah.
Wasn't his best day.
I have a Tom Homo story, too. I come back from my mission. I'm in spring ball, and they moved me from safety to cornerback, and I can't play cornerback. I have no footwork, no anything. And I got hit, and I thought, oh, my gosh, I just forgot how hard it hit. But Tom was a defensive back. He won't know me or my name or from anything. But
he knows you're the editor of the Deseret News.
Well, he does now. We have an editor. This sounds stupid. I'm the executive editor, but I don't want to.
You're in charge of the editor. All right.
Editor. So we have both. But he's saying, Doug, try and do this, and he was showing me footwork and everything. So I got a view that this guy's going to be a coach.
He's
He's going to do something. And you ended up having Tom Homo, Bill Ring, all at Stanford, then at, under Bill Walsh.
Yeah.
And then BYU is something. Nobody does that.
Right.
They have people there.
If you didn't see Tom's, we had Tom on the show for more than an hour, right? Wasn't it about an hour?
That's great.
And when he told us about when, one of my favorite stories of the whole 2 years was Tom telling us about when Dion signed and he didn't know about it. And he went in to coach and said, how am I supposed to coach Deion Sanders?
I did see that.
It was really fun.
Well, just think about backing up Ronnie Lott and getting 3 rings and and
then he got a 4th as a coach. It's more than anybody in school history.
Yeah. Did you ask him what happened at Cal? Because that doesn't make any sense that his career, we would have that 1 year at Cal.
I've talked to him in private a lot about it, and they did a phenomenal job recruiting. And he said that earlier he needed to recognize that there were some changes that needed to happen on the staff, but he was too loyal to the guys that kind of been there. But before, was it Mooch that left, Mariucci that left and left him that? Yeah. And that he knew that things needed to be changed, and it just kind of crumbled in on him. And if he could go back and do it over again, he would be more proactive and make those changes.
By the way, probably the best group coming out of BYU right now is the women's track and field stars. They have pros now with Courtney Wayne.
Oh, they're great.
And Anna Camp Bennett. And I'm missing one.
Connor Mance is.
Connor Mance is fantastic.
He's one top.
And you got the Steepler now, who's who won the national championship. That's phenomenal, and they're all Utah guys.
Yeah,
I mean, they're homegrown people. So
and women's soccer is like they just every year are putting somebody in National Women's Soccer.
Yeah, that's right. Ashley Hatch is right there, seeing if she gets
on
to the
national
Olympics
team,
or not.
It's as you look at the Big 12 and year 2, even though half the sports are still in year 1, but this has been such an interesting thing because you mentioned football gets all the attention. So 5 and 7 wasn't great. 6 and 6 for some reason would have been so much better.
And then go in a bowl game and be 7-6 would have felt great.
That's too bad about the bowl game.
But as a whole, BYU on a competitive level in the Big 12 is competing like it's always been in the Big 12. And now Texas, which has been their nemesis in volleyball and in the conference champion in football, and they're tough in women's basketball. They're tough in every sport. They are who they are. They're leaving. There's a opportunity for BYU in year 2, 3, and 4 to move into the upper echelon of the Big 12 and act like they've always been there.
And I think they can do it. And the thing that's so interesting, folks in Salt Lake City think University of Utah is the one to do that. So that heightens the rivalry again.
Yeah.
Because BYU thinks, no, we're pretty darn good. Here's our record. And University of Utah says, yeah, well, we did have 2 Pac-12 championships. So I hope it's friendly. I hope it's cordial.
It's going to be awesome.
It'll be awesome. And it's
great for our business.
Utah's had a huge advantage being in the Pac-12 the last 10 years that they don't have anymore. And now not only do they not have that advantage, now they're in the same league. People forget when BYU and Utah were in the same league, it was the other way around.
Well, and it took 9-10 years to get a championship for Utah.
Right.
So we're here talking about the first year.
Yeah.
And it's like, we needed 2 more games. But
I don't know that Utah competed in all the other sports the way BYU's competed in the fall.
No.
I mean, it took all of the sports some time to, with a few exceptions, to make it where where I feel like BYU was Big 12 ready in almost all fall sports with the exception of football.
Yeah, so who's BYU's quarterback next year?
It could be somebody in the portal.
Do you think it is a
portal?
portal?
They're not going to pay $2.5 million for him. No, and here's the other thing. People are discounting Ryder Burton too. They forget that they brought Ryder Burton in thinking he was the next Zach Wilson, and he's just a freshman. Really smart, can spin it like crazy. Little different style because he's not a big-time RPO run guy, but he can run. And so I think that job's up for grabs. And I don't think they're just going to take anybody out of the portal. If you got a superstar, which I don't think they will, you could get a one and done. But I think if they're going to get somebody in the portal, they need somebody that has a couple of years. At that position.
And have them compete, right? You can't give them the job.
You recruit over the top of quarterbacks. That's just what you do. You have to, because you don't know who's going to turn out. It's the most unpredictable position to project, from junior college to big time, from high school to, it's just such a tough position to project who's going to be good and who's not.
If we learned anything from this season, I think as long as Aaron Roderick is the offensive coordinator, there will never be a quarterback on the field that doesn't run the RPO.
Well, then,
and if
now you've limited a certain number of people who are coming in.
And so that in the portal, whoever they go get is going to be an RPO guy. The guys they recruit henceforth are going to be RPO guys. If Ryder Burton doesn't evolve into an RPO guy, and there's no reason to think he can't, he won't play. Aaron learns.
Which let me tell you something, is a huge mistake to make that statement, and he has made it. Because my feeling is, if you got a kid that wants to come here, and he's the best drop back passer in the country, which BYU has the capability of getting. So say there's an LDS kid coming out of Arizona, because John Beck's not an RPO guy.
Right.
Max Hall's not an RPO guy, right? So if you make that statement, then you're eliminating some opportunities, because if John Beck's coming out, I want John Beck, and I will change my offense to fit John Beck's needs because he's an NFL guy.
What we learned with Slovis was, here's a kid who throws for 11,000 yards. He's not an RPO guy. He's not a runner. Tried to make him a runner, got him hurt, and then we had to put in a JC kid who never played a Division I down. Not to say that he won't be great someday, but that's what we had, and we lost 4 games against 4 good teams. But when Slovis came in, we were all under the impression, and talking with Slovis and talking with Aaron, that they were going to sling it around, because that's what he does. He did it at USC, did it at Pitt. He didn't run the option at any of those places. But then we started seeing him run the option to start taking hits, and that's not him.
Yeah, we found out he hurt his shoulder in the Arkansas game. And he tried to play with a bad shoulder until they got enough games under their belt that they could save the redshirt year, for the other quarterbacks. But look at Oklahoma State's quarterback. He's not an RPO guy.
Yeah, one and done.
He's a big throw it around guy.
I mean, it's
he did have the best running back in America.
Yeah, he did, because Ollie Gordon was something special.
I don't know. I think it's tough. I don't know how people survive in coaching, but
you know what RPOs do? RPOs bail the coordinator out. How many times did Taysom Hill bail Robert and I out by just running?
Yeah.
Jaron Hall running. Zach
row,
Wilson running. Yeah, got hurt, paid the price for it 3 of those 4 years. But back up, nobody's open, you run, and everyone thinks the offense is clicking because it's first down.
You've got to get the first down. That's why Jake Heaps couldn't get the first down. That was the problem, right? Amazing arm.
He wasn't going to run.
And he wasn't going to run. So you've got to get in and have that. If it's 3rd and 3 or 4, don't you as a quarterback say, okay, I'm going to take it and go if I have to? Or do you never go there?
If it opens up. And Ryder Burton is more athletic than you think. I just don't think that Ryder Burton's the guy to come run this, like literally a triple option, run, an RPO where it's like, do I give, do I keep, do I throw it? Like, that's going to put pressure on the defense, going out there running like a Taysom Hill will, right?
Or even like a Zach.
But Ryder Burton is a guy that would drop back. And if everybody's covered and you leave a run lane, he'll go run for a first down. He'll go run 9 yards for a first down. But a true RPO guy, like this dual threat, we should describe a dual threat, because they're talking about we got to have a dual threat guy in today's game. Well, Caleb Williams is a dual threat guy, but gotten hurt a couple of times.
And they lost a lot of games.
And they lost a lot of games with a dual threat guy, right?
No defense.
No defense.
You got to have some defense with the dual threat.
The best team in America for the last 2 years was Georgia, with a quarterback that's a drop back guy that can run enough, but not run an RPO. But you know what they do? They put big offensive lines in front of him and great running backs behind him. I think BYU needs to get back in the business of dominating the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball and being able to run the football when they want to run the football, and play action pass, and throw the football.
Well, now you sound like Steve Young, right?
Yeah.
Steve Young could run, but he became the best passer in the NFL how many years in a row?
A lot
of years.
And they didn't run RPO with Steve Young.
That's right.
But
even though they could have.
Yeah, and he kind of ran his own RPO.
Well, no, but Steve Young was the guy that would make you pay if you didn't contain him or if you left a rush lane open. And I do think you need to have that. I think you have to have a quarterback that's mobile enough to bail you out and make a defense pay if they drop 8, right? And can find those lanes. But I don't think you need to have a quarterback that's a dual threat. Guy runs a 4.5 40 and is going to kill the defense because we have an extra running back. Go recruit running backs and get big linemen and have your quarterback throw it all over the place. And BYU can do that consistently. So that's just my opinion.
Do you have any eligibility left?
I wish I still had some.
Got to be a year in there.
Scrambling would be would get him.
The Spanish
Those linebackers are fast.
And here's the thing: I can run RP. I could. Not now. I would die. Like both hamstrings would fall. But in my peak of health and age, I could have run RPO all day long. But
if you're going to run RPO, you have to have a backup that runs RPO, because your guy's going to get hit and get hurt. And if you're going to run drop back, you've got to have a backup that runs drop back. But when Slovis went out and Retzlaff came in, totally different quarterback, totally different offense.
Different skill set. Yeah. 4
legit defenses going up against. He had such a small margin for error, and then he made some errors that were huge in games that he could have won, and really could have taken that job and said, guys, I beat Oklahoma, I beat Oklahoma State, I'm your man.
Then he would come
into
it
would be totally
as the
different.
One, right?
Yeah.
But now it left you scratching your head going, what we can't do is go into year 2 not knowing that position's not secure and the guy behind him is ready to go.
But is it his fault on that 100-yard interception return? Or did they call the wrong play?
No, it's his fault.
They gave him the option.
He's supposed to hand off.
No, they didn't.
He's supposed to hand off.
Okay, so it was wrong.
Yeah, and he mentioned it after. He goes, "Yeah, that was my mistake."
AFR.
Yeah, after the game, he's like, "That was my bad."
Yeah, that was my mistake, and it was.
We wouldn't throw him under the bus, but he threw himself under the bus.
It was brutal, and live and learn. But you win that game, then you go back to Oklahoma State playing with house money.
Yeah.
And now you might be in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Instead we're
which I'm really disappointed I got chased from the Cheez-Its Bowl because I love the Cheez-Its.
You just need practice. So those guys are having to weight lift now.
We are on with Doug Wilkes, the executive editor of the Deseret News, which is based out of Salt Lake City and covers the world. You ready for 5 questions?
Oh, yeah. I forgot we do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is like
We're going to see how you know.
No, we never do.
We never do.
These are first thing that pop into your head questions. So here we go. Favorite sports movie?
Favorite sports movie? Well, it's stupid, but it's Brian's song.
Why is that stupid?
No,
that was just the anniversary the other day.
Brian's
who
song
did we
was
just
a good
have
movie.
on that said that?
Right. So, it might have been Harvey Longy.
Yeah, Harvey might have said that.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Brian's song. Yeah,
Plus,
that's
Gil
good.
Sayers, I was a fan.
I can watch that movie still and cry.
That's a sad one.
Like it's amazing.
Go Bears.
And who was the co-star of that?
James Caan.
James Caan, the guy from The Godfather.
Yeah.
He played
He played the lead role, right?
Yeah, that was good.
So
All
good.
right, Brian's song.
Okay, your favorite singer or band?
The Who.
The Who.
Oh, see, now
Classic
that's old
rock.
school. That's good stuff.
Did you ever see them in concert?
I did not. I mean, I saw some good concerts back in the day.
What was the best one you ever saw?
Tina Turner.
Really?
Probably.
She's an entertainer.
Yeah,
like
she was
no
an
other.
entertainer. Crosby, Stills, and Nash was great. I mean, that's...
Did you ever see
before-
Def Leppard?
No.
Oh, you should see Def Leppard.
I don't think I should.
Hedrick and I have seen him like 4 times.
I don't. Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
Is AC/DC your favorite?
I like them. I like a lot of different stuff. I saw them in concert in Vegas, and that was awesome.
Yeah,
You
he's been
probably
a couple
saw
times.
everyone in Vegas.
We've seen a lot.
Everyone goes
Everyone
through it.
Everyone
comes to
came to the
Vegas.
Thomas and Mack in Vegas.
Everybody
that is anybody. So, okay, your favorite breakfast cereal. This is important. So think,
This is easy. Captain Crunch.
Okay. That's Dave's.
I had that this morning.
It's very good.
And you don't do the crunch berries or the peanut butter. You just do the straight Captain Crunch.
Crunch berries are an abomination.
And it doesn't hurt the top of your mouth, the roof of your mouth.
It does, but in a good way.
But it's worth it.
It's worth it. Okay.
It's like scratching a mosquito bite. You know, it's not. It feels good right at the start.
We don't make fun of anyone that picks a sugar cereal. Anybody that picks a healthy cereal, we can't.
Well, if I pick a healthy cereal, I'm going to go home. My wife's going to go, "You lied."
Yeah, exactly.
I wrote a column once at Rick's College for the Scroll when I was a student there about how Captain Crunch rips the upper roof of your mouth off, but it's worth it.
Yeah. For the second week in a row, my pre-show meal was Cinnamon Life. So there you go.
Right, that's good.
How about your favorite story to report? The favorite story you've ever reported on?
It's a great question. Probably favorite one was when I was a young reporter and they were bringing remains home from Vietnam of a Benjamin, Utah by Spanish Fork flyer. And I got to know the widow and got to know the family, and they buried him on a hill. It's either Spanish Fork or Benjamin, but it's a hill. It was cold. It was just the family. And it was moving to me. And to report that and think, I can't screw this up. I have to report this right. Yeah. And I was really, really young, but it was so impressionable. There have been other really sort of more significant stories, but to the family, nothing more significant. And it taught me there's no small story.
Yeah.
You know, so that was a good story to
And
do.
when you were done, did you feel like you told his story?
Yeah, and hers. Her stories. They had, the hands of the kids around the sidewalk, and she hadn't heard for, this is, Vietnam ended, 75? Yeah. This had to be like 80-something, 85, maybe something like that. Mm. So it had been years without him, and they found the remains, and they brought him back, and it was pretty emotional. And that's so long ago, but that helped form how I approach news. So that's why that was so important.
There's no small stories. I love that.
Yeah. I remember when Andrew was 18 months, he almost drowned, and gave him CPR and brought him back. And we're in the, my wife was at the hospital with him, and I was at home with Madison, and we were watching the news that night, and our story came on. Now, they couldn't get in the neighborhood because it was gated and all that stuff. So they shot the outside of it and this and that, and talked about the first near drowning of the season in Las Vegas. And it was traumatic. The whole thing was traumatic. But then watching my trauma on TV, no one knew it was us. I just remember watching that, and then the world changed a little bit. It's like those stories were then the hardest to ever report on the news, even if it was 20 seconds.
Yeah, but the fact that you knew that was important.
Yeah, you lived it, and then you also realized the viewer or those who experience it, that it's actually their crisis, not your crisis that you're reading about on TV, trying to get it right. And that was just very profound to me. I'm listening to my own crisis on the news. And I had the luxury of no one knowing it was us, but just that responsibility of treating things a certain way when things go bad. That was a profound moment. That reminded me of that.
You have to take it. You have to take it seriously. You take the news seriously. You don't take yourself seriously.
Yeah.
And you were really great at this at KSL, where you would, if it's a light moment, if it's sports, if you're having fun, great. But you can't do that for every story, and you have to be aware of the impact.
Yeah,
absolutely. And our last of the five, your favorite BYU memory. Doesn't have to be sports related at all. Just your favorite BYU memory.
Wow, favorite BYU memory. I had stopped playing football. I stopped in the spring. And my father came over from London, and we went to San Diego to watch the Holiday Bowl with Jim McMahon and SMU. And it was as miserable a game as I'd ever seen, but we stayed.
You stayed.
And then the last 5 minutes were fantastic, and my father and I were leaping around and jumping, and it was this most amazing thing. And then the headline in the paper was, miracle finish, miracle bowl in the San Diego Union.
Yeah.
And that's probably the favorite for all the reasons you can think of, for family and not being on the field with, and I know those guys then, right? Because I knew who they were. And then you think, man, what if I should have stayed played? you always think you should have still played until you realize that you're putting in 5 hours a day doing something. So I could be a third string something. So.
Yeah.
But that was a good memory. And there's a lot of them. I mean, you mentioned Danny Ainge was a freshman in 77. And what he did in his career was amazing. And all the guys that followed, right? Fred Roberts and just all those guys. So it's worth understanding your roots. And so all those guys who are playing so well right now in the NFL and everywhere, I'll have a lot to thank for guys, like you and others who put the time in. So Wally
Joyner was there during your era. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago. Fascinating story.
He had so many great stories.
Well, and he's great in the baseball program. I like baseball. My son-in-law pitched for BYU, Brandon Kinzer. And yeah, getting involved. I mean, nothing better than Saturday afternoon, just a few folks in the stands, but it's sunny. You're back there with Gary Scheide.
He's telling a fishing story of some sort.
Gary Scheide, his daughter was my niece's roommate at BYU. It's just, there's all these connections.
Yeah.
So
that's the power of sports. It's the power of the show. It's the power of Cougar Nation. We're all connected by so many things, and so much of it that's good is connected through sports.
Yeah. Well, even my brother and I, we talk about upstate New York, and you're from there, and Jim or Fredette, and we're texting every Saturday, right? And, saying, really? Really? How many times do you type that? So it is. Sports is great, and that's not the only thing. At the end of the day, okay.
It's
BYU
a nice
win 5-7. Let's move on to Christmas.
Yeah.
So
it's a nice diversion from the hard realities of life. And sometimes it gets too extreme and you have to pull back a little bit. But for the most part, when sports is kept in check, my wife reminds me of this all the time, if it's kept in check, it's fun and good and enhances our experience. And if it gets out of hand, then it gets stupid.
Yeah, and when Governor Herbert came on, he mentioned, hey, sports is part of the fabric of society, and it can be a really good force for positive things, and can bring people together and connect people and all that. It can also get ugly if rivalries get too, or if you get so caught up in it that you're just depressed because of what 18-year-old kids could or couldn't do on the field. Then it's taken it too far, and but there's just so many good things that sports brings to our society.
There's so many personal stories. I mean, you could have Mark Wilson on again and fill an hour and a half and be fantastic, or any and the non-stars, right? I'm a freshman scrub, but I got to go against Todd Christensen and Gifford Nielsen and Mark Wilson, and those are pretty good memories, even though you're not, I'm not on the field in Cougar Stadium, just watching that and then thinking about it. And then watching Christensen in the pros. And, you watch all these guys in the pros. Zach Wilson, will he have a second chance with a different team than the Jets?
Let's hope so.
I agree with you that not to bring this to a screeching halt, but that's the worst organization.
My brother Mark.
Get him out of there. Go get him someplace good.
Go somewhere else.
My younger brother Mark, the youngest of the 10 McCanns, was the scout team quarterback for 1 year at BYU, and Rob Morris, they go up against the defense, and Rob Morris happened to be the linebacker. Hit him every day, hit him hard, and that's his. After a year, he goes, you know what? I'm moving on. Well, I don't need this in my life. Well, but the memories of the freight train coming in,
it is, and and did you have concussions?
I'm sure I did. But we didn't. I remember getting hit.
There was no protocol.
I ran.
No, they hold up fingers.
I ran over to our sideline, and got hit. And I think the first thing that hit the ground was the back of my head, 5 yards out of bounds. Because I remember Mike Holmgren telling me, "What are you doing? Like, why are you doing that?" And I remember multiple times, like silver. They say you see stars, like little silver things flying all around, and you do this and try to, and they go, "You okay? Yeah, I'm fine." And you run back out of the field. But that doesn't happen anymore. Now when you go, I've got little silver things flying around, they take you out, right?
But you probably think about, boy, I hope I'm okay in 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have that.
Every now and then his concussions show up on the show.
My wife reminds me that something's messed up.
It can happen. Was it great being with Holmgren? I forgot he was your coach.
Yeah, so Andy Reid was our graduate assistant with quarterbacks. Mike Homer was our quarterback coach. Ted Tollner was the year before that. I was recruited by Doug Scoville and Fred Whittingham.
We have that in common. Look how we turned out.
Yeah. Right there, sitting next to each other.
No, we had, and Norm Chow was our wide receivers coach at that time, and co-play calling with Mike Holmgren. And Norm was a genius in what he was doing and the demands that he made and how he just demanded excellence. When I look at like 1983, who I think is one of the greatest football teams of all time, with Steve Young at the helm for us at quarterback, and we lost that opener to Baylor and then didn't lose the rest of that season, finished number 7. 84, 85. I get thinking, man, we must have been really, really talented, and we had a bunch of NFL guys. But then I look at those team pictures and I look at the coaching staffs. I'm like, wow, this is like a who's who in coaching. Maybe we weren't so great. Maybe we were really well coached, because that makes a huge difference. And some amazing coaches that Lavelle brought in that blossomed and went on, coached us up during those days. Like I feel unbelievably blessed for who I got to be with in terms of coaches during that time.
Yeah, so really the games don't matter, but what you learn, that relationship, being in the locker room, and even being in some of the huddles with Lavelle, where he would say so little, and you kind of go, man, this is, he really is letting his coaches coach, and he did.
Yeah.
Or the exit interview. Like I had an exit interview after freshman year, and I didn't really appreciate that Lavelle was Lavelle, because it's I'm a freshman kid. I'm about to go on a mission, and I didn't know. And not everyone was going on missions at that point.
Right.
But I wish I had appreciated that a little more in that moment and gave a little more thought to seeking his advice.
Well, that's why we get wiser as we get older.
Wow.
We look back and we
go
to our kids, hey, you should listen to this, or you should do that.
Our two graduate assistants that my one year were Andy Reid and Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah,
they turned out okay.
They're doing all right.
They're still doing all right. Doug Wilkes from the Deseret News. Thanks for driving all the way down here to our secret location.
Thanks. This is fun.
Don't tell anybody where this is, because this is a non-disclosed location.
This is a cave. This is quite something. So
now we had Sherry Dew on here a while back. Now we've had two major journalistic execs.
Yeah, two major media moguls is what we call them. They're media moguls.
Together, she's great. But that's the thing, right? You can talk sports with anyone. And Sherry's great talking sports. If we ever have a meeting going south, we bring up BYU and we know, okay, we can
Sherry's like
wise man.
She told us about her experience as an all-state basketball player back in Kansas growing up.
She was good. Did you see her line?
Should have played at BYU, but she said she was too shy to play at BYU.
She was really, really good.
Yeah.
Great
we
player.
could have used her.
Yeah.
We could have used her.
And she had great insights on basketball. We talked sports with Sherry. We talked everything with Sherry, but we talked sports with Sherry, and she was like on the money. It's fun.
Well, we got to get that Deseret News basketball team back going.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll start the ski school again, and then we'll go basketball.
Ski school. You're going to watch us tomorrow night, BYU and Evansville. That's going to be a challenging game
I'm
for
going to text a
BYU.
critique now that I've been.
Text us right during the game. We'll look at them.
We look at our text timeouts, because people text us important stuff sometimes.
Like, hey, get some milk on the way home. Just, things,
they'll text us
that.
like, hey, we're from Evansville. That guy's name is not this. It's pronounced this. We're like, oh, that's
thank you. Appreciate that.
That's not what the sports information director told us, but since you're his mom, okay.
Yeah. One thing that you do great that I'll compliment you on is on the the pregame and the postgame with BYU TV. I never felt like you were trying to snow us. I feel like you're telling the truth. You're making predictions. You're frustrated in the right times. You're just like, and Brian Logan, sometimes he's going.
It's group therapy sometimes.
It is, but it's a good show. I mean,
we love it. And when Dave came to Dave and I, and Dave was down in Vegas, and I was off doing stuff with NBC, and they wanted to rebuild the thing, we said, we're only going to come back if we can do it like a network show. Like, we don't want to come back and be the BYU Homer crew. We want to come back and we want to do it like a network show. We want to be, and we'll have ties to BYU, but we want to be able to call it like it is. We want to be able to represent the other team and get their insights. We want to have relationships with the opposing coaches. We want to do all of that. And they said, yeah, that's what we want to do too. That's our vision too.
And the Big 12 coaches, the other media, they're going, wow, you guys are really doing something here.
Yeah,
so it's just going to build. It's really great.
The opposing audience is more important to BYU TV, which, diehards don't like to hear, but yeah, that's true. The audiences that we want to have come back to BYU TV. Now we're on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, we do all
but
the
it's still
ESPN
all
Plus
of
now.
us, and so. But all our shoulder programming on BYU TV, whether it's Game Day or the pre and post game for basketball or AFR or the Coordinator's Corner or the Sataki or Pope shows, all those things are designed to get the other team to come back and watch the rest of what BYU TV has to offer, and maybe it changes their life in a little bit. And then at least they found a channel that they can have on where they don't have to run and turn before a scene or words. It's just hard to find. It's hard to find good TV.
Have you had Connor Mance on yet?
Did we have Connor after? No, we had.
No, we brought
the other one, the one who won it before him that we mentioned earlier.
Jared Ward.
No, who'd we have?
Dang.
No, maybe we did.
We
have
need
Connor.
to get Connor on.
Connor, I mean, he's making a run for the Olympics, right? So you got 6 months.
Felt like we had him on after he won last year.
Those guys they're amazing.
Yeah, they're great talent.
It's just because you can't fake it. You have to put in the training.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's one of the world's best right now, so it's fun. Yeah, we're lucky because now we get to call Evansville tomorrow. And when the Big 12 came and said, hey, we want you to do the Big 12 now package for ESPN Plus, you don't have to do anything different. We don't have to call the games different now that it's just as important, like, because we can just call it the way we've called it.
Radio
which is what
can
we
be
wanted.
we and us and all that stuff, but not TV.
Yeah, the folks in Evansville tomorrow night are important to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to watch it and feel like they got fairly represented.
Well, it'll be interesting. I mean, yeah, it's like BYU basketball is off to a good start, so see where it goes.
Really fun.
Yeah, how about that? All right, Doug Wilkes, executive editor of the Deseret News. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for
coming.
coming.
Thank you.
Guys.
I thought it'd be on 5 minutes. That was longer than I thought.
Yeah, well, remember we said about a half hour.
Nobody gets to do 5 minutes
but
on
then
this show.
we just kept going because it's good.
I kept asking Blaine questions.
No.
So I'm curious about. I mean that national championship team and all the lead up. Man, it's fantastic.
It's a fun time.
Hey, while you're sitting there, let's finish up our show.
Yeah.
On this day, December 4th, we like to have a little history thing at the very end.
This is
puts
really,
it all perspective.
We're going to start all the way back in 1619. Because in 1619,
we go old school
on December 4th, that's the first Thanksgiving in America, in Virginia.
I think the Cougars beat Utah by 6 that year.
In 1619.
Have you already thought of the headline you're going to use when BYU beats Utah in Salt Lake next Thanksgiving weekend?
I have not, but I will give
Something
that
to think about that.
Send it to us, and we'll put it out on the show.
All right.
1791 on this day, Britain's Observer is first published. It's the oldest Sunday paper in the world.
1791. How about in 1881, the first edition of the LA Times is published. We're doing a newspaper.
Since you're here, we go.
Feeling honored.
Why did it took them 31 years after the Deseret News got started to get going?
They wanted to learn how to do it, and then we gave them a lot of expertise.
Plus, they were out rounding up all the gold and stuff over there. All right, 1909.
Yeah, that's the first CFL Grey Cup was played. It was the Toronto Blues, which now are the Argos, Toronto Argonauts, and they played the Toronto Parkdale.
Yeah,
they beat them 26-6. So, so there's one Toronto team now. It's the Argonauts.
1920 on this day, the first pro football game in this country. Buffalo beat Canton 7-3.
Buffalo and Canton 7-3. They played in little stadiums back in those days.
They were running the Jets offense.
Players had jobs in other places.
They're running the same Jets plays.
The Jets have the same management team runs the Jets. So 1954 on this day, December 4th, the first Burger King opened in Miami, Florida.
Changed the world we live in.
Yes, it did.
The Whopper.
Do you know what? Every once in a while, like maybe once a year, I just go, you know what I'm craving right now? A Whopper with cheese. And
you know, and they taste the same. They taste the same as when we were growing up. That grilled still tastes good.
We did a 19-day cruise.
Flame broil or whatever.
This is a number of years ago where we started in Rio de Janeiro and we worked our way up through South America and through the Caribbean and we finished in Florida. 19 days.
It's a long cruise.
And 19 days is a long time to be eating bananas Foster and all these foo-foo foods. We got to St. Thomas. And I got off that ship and I just said, I have got to find a fast food restaurant. And I went right down the street and the first place I saw was Burger King and I had a double beef Whopper with cheese and it was I still remember that meal.
Lancey bleeds blue out of South Salt Lake on the Wise Guys tonight. Lancey, thanks for joining the show.
Wait, and the Coug Dude says he just found out that yesterday his 12th great-grandpa was William Stone that arrived in Virginia colony in 1619. So he was probably at that first Thanksgiving.
Thanks for sharing
way
that.
to go, Coug Dude.
Birthdays on this day, December 4th, 1840, Crazy Horse.
Yeah. It was what? Do you know what tribe like Crazy Horse? You're talking about the Native American
the chief,
right?
Yeah. I don't know what tribe, but
Okay.
I just put that.
So 19 I like that one.
I didn't make it up.
1990
I just didn't put the whole identifier.
1949, Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, you know what his big role was? He's in a lot of movies.
Yeah, he's been in a ton of movies.
But he was the dude in Iron Man. You know, the bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
In Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I know.
In 1969, way more in my frame of thinking.
I put this in for you.
He knows I'm a hip hop guy. He's an AC/DC guy. I'm a hip hop guy. I grew up in New York playing basketball and football. Jay-Z, 1969. That's
Here's
the
the
power
difference.
couple of all entertainment.
Here's the difference between AC/DC and hip hop. I can play AC/DC in front of my mother. Hip hop, you can't.
Well,
too many words.
You have to get the edited versions. You have to get the edited versions.
You're no Taylor Swift fans in here?
I like
we think we think she's awesome.
You need to get her on the show.
It's amazing
we've tried to get her on the show, and we'll keep working on it.
I keep telling my wife it's amazing what Travis Kelce has done for Taylor Swift's career, though. Yeah. He's really.
Andy Reid's got to be our conduit to getting Taylor Swift. So we're gonna have to go that way.
So Jay-Z and Beyonce, are they not the biggest power couple in America? So
maybe. Our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week is President Jeffrey R. Holland, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles.
Yeah, and one of our dear friends who was a president while we were there. That's not only do we have good coaches, but Jeffrey R. Holland was sitting on the bus with us to all of our games
and now he's president again, which he likes.
Which is we can call him President Holland again.
Yeah. Does he do that every game?
Yeah, he rode on the team bus with us. It was
That's really awesome.
We got to know him.
I didn't know that. That's great. Yeah.
He told us in an interview a couple years ago that he doesn't miss games when he's on the road, even if he's up at 3 a.m. listening over the internet to KSL radio. He does not miss BYU games, which we love.
Elder Holland and you know who else? Like Elder Perry. Whenever I would see him. Before he passed, he'd just be like, all right, Blaine, what is going on with these? He never missed a football or basketball
I don't know. It just gets a hold of you. I was a big 49er fan, but, not so much anymore. It's okay. San Francisco Giants, all of it for a time. I cannot release BYU.
No.
It's just.
And that's good. That's a good thing.
You know what? Ute fans can't either.
So back to Jeffrey R. Holland. President Holland. Remember, but first and forever, there was just a little family without toys or trees or tinsel with a baby. That's how Christmas began. Very, very appropriate for this time of year.
Well said.
There was just a little family without toys or trees or tinsel with a baby. That's how it began.
You know what there is this year for Christmas? There's a book available called C is for Cougar at DeseretBook.com.
Did Sherry was she the publisher?
Well, she approved the whole operation.
She sign off on it?
DJ, are you going to put that up there? And then you can get it. It's $14.99. It's at DeseretBook.com, Seagull Book, Amazon, BYU Store, wherever it is. Anyway, two things. The alphabet's never going to go out of style, and BYU football's not going out of style.
It sits on my desk, and I thumb through it all the time. It's a great.
I hope you got it for the grandkids.
So
if you haven't, you got time.
I don't know if we
need to do a follow-up book.
I got the first
alphabet.
Just so everybody knows, I got the first copy because we had the unveiling here, and I took the first copy, and Dave signed it.
Well, I should have gone with Wilkes at W, but there was a couple other W's. There was Mark Wilson, there was Zach Wilson, there was Jamal Williams.
I still can't believe
Doug Wilkes.
There's the link to it.
It was a coin toss.
This reminds me that we're way overdue to go up to Salt Lake City and meet Sherry Dew for dinner.
Yeah.
So we
need to do that again.
Yep.
Great things happen to us when we go to Salt Lake and have dinners.
Yep.
Yeah, come by.
Doug Wilkes.
We'll take Doug with us.
Thanks to Doug and David Nixon on with us tonight. Next week, Bronson Kafusi, and we'll break down next season. And you know what? There's a lot that's going to happen between now and next Monday for BYU football.
This transfer portal is about to go nuts in the next couple of days. So Bronson will be great to kind of look at all of that.
Podcast will be up tomorrow. It's wherever you get your podcasts, and then look for clips on YouTube throughout the week. Your highlights will be on YouTube throughout the week.
And don't forget to join Dave and I tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time on ESPN Plus for the BYU Evansville basketball game.
That's 7-1 Evansville and 7-0 BYU. This is actually going to be a really intriguing game.
I'm sad that you and I don't have the Utah game on Saturday.
I know, but it's up there.
Yeah, it's on the Pac-12 network if you can find it.
If you can find it. The Pac-2 network. Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Thanks
everyone.
for watching the Wise Guys.
Thanks for watching.